Chapter 602. What are your plans for the future? Zhou Xuanji asked Sunlight Emperor. No matter what his relationship with Sunlight Emperor was like before, he now felt that Sunlight Emperor was quite pleasing to the eye. Back then, Sunlight Emperor had many chances to kill him, but he failed. It couldn't be said that he underestimated his opponent. It could only be said that he was very arrogant. However, when faced with an undefeatable enemy, he would be a little timid. Sunlight Emperor replied, "You don't have to sympathize with me. I didn't die. I just turned into the way of heaven." He had a proud look on his face. The heavenly Tao was the highest existence. At that time, he would become a truly invincible existence. Zhou Xuanji was silent. Xiaohu could not help but say, "You don't even have a consciousness. What's the point of becoming the heavenly Tao?" Sunlight Emperor asked back, "What do you spend your whole life for?" Xiaohu was stunned. He had never thought about this. The reason why he cultivated was because he wanted to be free. Everyone has their own ambitions. There's nothing much to say. Si Mengyan shook his head. He did not despise or agree with Sunlight Emperor's decision. After saying that, Sunlight Emperor leaped up and flew above the clouds. Zhou Xuanji and the others entered the void and jumped into the Wanshan Great Thousand. They landed in a wood. Ren Niming said, "You guys wait here first. I'll go make a plan. Don't leave and wait for me to come back." With that, he left. Xiaohu sat on the ground and leaned against a tree. He sighed and said, "I can finally rest." Si Mengyan walked to the side and sat down to rest. Zhou Xuanji took out Demon God Tianwu and Demon God Nanming and said, "I'm going back to my magic treasure world to have a look." Then, he entered the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. As soon as he disappeared, the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus appeared. Xiaohu and Si Mengyan looked curiously at the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus and praised it in their hearts. Zhou Xuanji quickly found Jiang Shui and the others. At this moment, they were in the house, and the atmosphere was somewhat tense. Zhou Xuanji appeared behind Jiang Shui and saw Zhou Xiaoxian lying on the bed. Her face was covered in cold sweat. He asked, "What's going on?" The moment he spoke, Jiang Shui, Lady Zhao Xian, and Huang Lianxin jumped in fright. He quickly walked to the bedside and examined Zhou Xiaoxian. She said her eyes were itchy, and then she suddenly fainted. Jiang Shui said nervously, which made Zhou Xuanji frown. Itchy eyes? His eyes had been itchy before, but he did not know when it had disappeared. Why did Zhou Xiaoxuan's eyes itch? His eyes had mutated after giving birth to Zhou Xiaoxian. If there was a chain reaction, it should be Xian Xianghua. He used his divine sense to examine Zhou Xiaoxian. He discovered that Zhou Xiaoxuan's eyes contained a terrifying power. It was completely different from his eyes. "What's that?" Zhou Xuanji frowned even more. He did not know why, but he felt a little uneasy, because he felt that this power was somewhat familiar. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. He took out the Holy Light Redemption Sword to heal Zhou Xiaoxian. After a while, Zhou Xiaoxian woke up. She opened her eyes and saw Zhou Xuanji. Her gaze was hazy as she muttered, "Father, I had a nightmare. I'm so scared." Zhou Xuanji wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and asked gently, "What nightmare?" "Since it's a nightmare, it must be fake." Seeing Zhou Xiaoxian like this, he suddenly felt sorry for her. It had been a long time since he felt so sorry for her. This girl was always laughing and joking, just like a boy. He rarely cared about what she was thinking. Unknowingly, he realized that he no longer understood her. "I dreamed that you died. Mother and Grand Teacher also died. There were corpses everywhere, and only I was left." Zhou Xiaoxuan's eyes turned red as she spoke. She thought of a terrifying possibility, and the more she thought about it, the more terrified she became. The old immortal had said that she had a mysterious power. Adding on the fact that Zhou Xuanji was being targeted by destiny, she could not help but overthink. Jiang Shui and the other two girls' expressions changed. They had also thought of that possibility. Zhou Xuanji looked calm and said with a smile, "Silly girl, your father is so powerful. How could he die? Don't overthink. Even if you want to kill me, you can't do it." Seeing that there was no change in his expression, Zhou Xiaoxuan's uneasy heart calmed down. My eyes also contain some power, but this power might attract enemies outside of the heavenly law. They are even more terrifying than destiny. But I'm not afraid. So what are you afraid of? Zhou Xuanji hooked Zhou Xiaoxuan's nose and smiled. Zhou Xiaoxian looked at his violet eyes and smiled. Indeed, no matter how she looked at it, Zhou Xuanji's eyes were more dangerous than hers. Zhou Xuanji got up and said to Jiang Shui, "For the time being, be careful, even in the Lotus world. I still have to deal with Heavenly Lord Xiantai. If there's any problem with Xiaoxian, just call me. I can sense it." Jiang Shui nodded. She took a step forward and asked with concern, "Are you really okay? If not, you can bring us out of the heavenly law's range. Even if death is unknown, we can die together. There's no need to kill each other." Destiny was ethereal. Who knew how it would control them? Jiang Shui did not want to hurt Zhou Xuanji one day. Zhou Xuanji smiled confidently. "Don't worry, it's not to that extent yet. In the demonic world, on a tall mountain that reached the clouds, Xian Xianghua, who was dressed in a black robe, sat on a throne. Her face was veiled, and her posture was frivolous and domineering. Following her gaze, there were countless evil spirits crawling on the ground. They were densely packed together, stretching to the ends of the earth in all directions. The demon lord is unparalleled, as high as the heavens. The demon lord is unparalleled, as high as the heavens. The demon lord is unparalleled, as high as the heavens." Countless demons cried out in unison, and their voices shook the sea of clouds. Xian Xianghua's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. She had finally reached the pinnacle of power. She began to laugh out loud. Her laughter intertwined with the demon's cries, making the entire demon realm even more horrifying. A long while later, the demons dispersed. Xian Xianghua sat on the throne alone and contemplated as she looked at the demon realm. Suddenly, a silhouette descended from the sky and landed in front of her. It was a middle-aged man dressed in a black robe. He had sharp eyebrows, hawk-like eyes, broad shoulders, and an indifferent expression. "I am Yu Xuanzong, a heavenly saint. I will give you an opportunity to become a heavenly saint. Are you willing to do it?" The black-robed man spoke with an irrefutable tone. "Heavenly saint." Xian Xianghua frowned slightly and got up. "What opportunity?" she asked softly. It was her first time meeting a heavenly saint. Although she was arrogant, she knew that she was no match for a heavenly saint. Wanqin Great Thousand Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji has 2 heavenly law violet qi. As the new lord of the demon realm, are you willing to deal with Zhou Xuanji? Yu Xuanzong said slowly. He stared into Xian Xianghua's eyes as though he wanted to see through her thoughts. Xian Xianghua asked with squinted eyes, "Zhou Xuanji? I've heard of him. He's so powerful. If I deal with him, won't I be seeking death?" Yu Xuanzong flicked his sleeves and turned around. With his back facing Xian Xianghua, he said, "I've already found many saint contenders. When the time comes, you guys can work together to deal with Zhou Xuanji. Kill Zhou Xuanji first, then fight for the heavenly law of violet qi fairly. Before that, I will think of a way to trap Zhou Xuanji." Chapter 603. Since you are a heavenly saint, you must be more powerful than Zhou Xuanji. Why don't you do it yourself? Xian Xianghua asked, pretending to be hesitant. Yu Xuanzong coldly harumphed and said, "Heavenly saints naturally cannot participate in mortal matters, and I should not have interfered in the fight for the heavenly law of violet qi. However, Zhou Xuanji is different. He does not belong to the heavenly law, and his background is mysterious. If he becomes a saint, he might destroy the order of the heavenly law. You're not only fighting for opportunities for yourselves, but also saving the heavenly law and all beings. Not everyone is qualified to participate. Only the rulers of the realms can participate." He sounded a little impatient. As a heavenly saint, he looked down on all living beings. If it weren't for the fact that this matter was troublesome, he wouldn't have come looking for Xian Xianghua. He had seen the scene of Xian Xianghua commanding the group of devils. In his eyes, this woman was just lucky. She had devoured the demonic realm heart and seized the opportunity when the demonic ancestor was missing. If it was before, It would have been impossible for this woman to see him. Xian Xianghua was still a little hesitant and asked, "You know us Saint contenders very well. Are you sure we can kill Zhou Xuanji?" She was a little puzzled. Shouldn't the heavenly saint be omniscient? Yu Xuanzong did not know about her relationship with Zhou Xuanji. Yu Xuanzong said coldly, "Do I need to understand you? If you die, then it means that your fates are fated to end here. Wait for my command." With that, Yu Xianzong disappeared on the spot. He wasn't the real body, just a wisp of consciousness. The same thing happened in other realms. The Wanshan Great Thousand, the Demon World, and the Demon World were not under his control. Coupled with the recent chaos of fate, Yu Xuanzong was unable to divine the Demon World and the Wanshan Great Thousand. He had never thought that Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua would have such a close relationship. He had read up on Zhou Xuanji. He had become the most powerful being in the Wanshan Great Thousand at the age of 300. Such a being should have been cultivating hard. How could the new demon realm lord be his old lover? Although the heavenly saints were powerful, they could not predict everything. If Reverend Daojing was here, it would be fine. He could communicate with Reverend Daojing. Every heavenly saint had a strong sense of dominance over their own territory and did not allow other heavenly saints to interfere. It was not just Grandmaster Yuxuan. The other heavenly saints did not know about the relationship between Xian Xianghua and Zhou Xuanji. "Zhou Xuanji, what are you up to this time?" Xian Xianghua looked at the dark sky and thought to herself. She was very curious about how powerful Zhou Xuanji was to force the heavenly saint to act. After Zhou Xuanji returned to Wanshan Great Thousand, Ren Niming had not returned yet. He sat on the grass and began to chat with Si Mengyan. He had wanted to ask about the relationship between Si Mengyan and Patriarch Hongshi. Si Mengyan did not hide anything and told Zhou Xuanji about the nurturing opportunities that old ancestor Hongshi had set for Zhou Xuanji. Old ancestor Hongshi's attention to him was no less than how venerable Daojing doted on him. After Zhou Xuanji heard about it, he felt quite amazed. It turned out that the heavenly saint, who was in a hurry, thought so highly of him. Unfortunately, old ancestor Hongshi had perished before they could even sit down and have a chat. What a pity. You want to avenge old ancestor Hongshi, but are you sure that it was Heavenly Lord Xiantai who killed him? They fought before, so it should be hard to tell who's stronger. Zhou Xuanji asked. He remembered that the old immortal said that the heavenly saints were almost immortal because they had the support of the heavenly law. Even if they were both heavenly saints, it would be very difficult for them to kill each other. Under normal circumstances, at least 2 heavenly saints had to work together to kill a saint. Si Mengyan shook his head and said, "I can be sure of at least one." Anyway, it was almost certain that Heavenly Lord Xiantai was the murderer. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He was filled with murderous intent toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai too. This guy wanted to kill him, so he had to take revenge. After that, the two chatted for a while more before continuing to cultivate. Ren Niming came back some time later. Zhou Xuanji began traveling between the 2 worlds. He spent most of his time teaching his disciples in the Lotus World. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Analyzed that the sword owner has reached 362 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations. The sword owner obtained 9 extreme, 3 clear Tai Chi sword fusion technique. Zhou Xuanji, who was accompanying Zhou Shaoxian on the mountain, was interrupted by the sword spirit's voice. He squinted his eyes. Finally, another 9 extreme legendary sword came. Soon, the legendary sword's information appeared before his eyes. Sword name: 3 clear Tai Chi sword grade, 9 extreme description. The heavenly law has 3 Qi, which are Yuqing, Shangqing, and Tai Qing. When the 3 Qi combine and fuse into Tai Chi, it can suppress a saint. To use this sword, one needs to be at least connecting heaven level 10. One needs to be at connecting heaven level 10 again. With the Saint Slayer sword, when he reaches connecting heaven level 10, he will be invincible among the heavenly saints. He was in a good mood and began to inherit the sword fusion technique. The sword fusion technique was the standard divine ability that the supreme legendary sword system provided to him. As the name suggested, he could fuse the legendary swords into his body, and he could control the ability to fuse the legendary swords. How many legendary swords he could fuse depended on how much his body could withstand. If he could withstand too many powerful legendary swords, his body would explode and he would die. Great divine ability. Zhou Xuanji was very happy. This meant that the more legendary swords he had, the more powerful he would be. How could he not be happy? "Father, what are you laughing at?" Zhou Xiaoxian asked as she trained. Ever since her eyes started to itch, her cultivation speed increased tremendously. Her understanding of the sword's way changed too. Sometimes, Zhou Xuanji even suspected that she had obtained a supreme legendary sword system. Of course, her comprehension was only limited to this. She could not conjure many swords out of nowhere. Zhou Xuanji waved his hand and said, "It's none of your business. Focus on your training." Zhou Xiaoxian curled her lip and continued her training. After learning the sword fusion technique, Zhou Xuanji became more confident in his battle against Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Half a year later, Ren Niming finally returned. After Zhou Xuanji heard about it through his clone, he immediately returned to Wanshan Great Thousand. "I have already contacted a heavenly saint. We will work together to deal with Heavenly Lord Xiantai," Ren Niming said with a smile, which made Xiao Hu open his eyes wide. Just how big was this guy's wrist? He can even contact a heavenly saint. "Which heavenly saint?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Ren Niming replied, "Barbarian God Huang Luo." He wanted to take the path of an overlord saint. After seeing the outcome of an overlord saint, he changed to the path of a heavenly saint. He is ranked top 3 among the heavenly saints. But in a one-on-one battle, he cannot kill Heavenly Lord Xiantai alone. You will be the one to do it. Your thunderclap sword contains the heavenly law's lightning punishment, which is extremely destructive to heavenly saints. However, a battle between heavenly saints is extremely dangerous. Before that, we must make your cultivation as powerful as possible. Barbarian God Huang Luo. It was Zhou Xuanji's first time hearing this name. He asked hesitantly, "Will Barbarian God Huang Luo deal with me?" After all, he had 2 heavenly law violet qi. As for handing over the heavenly law violet qi, it was impossible. These 2 heavenly law violet qi were entrusted to him by the heavenly saint. There was no reason for him to hand them over unless he was willing. Ren Niming smiled evilly and said, "If he wants to deal with us, we will think of a way to deal with him." Chapter 604. Where are we going now? Xiao Hu asked, his tone filled with anticipation. If Zhou Xuanji could kill a saint, it would be more and more likely for him to become a saint. If he could defeat destiny one day, Zhou Xuanji would be the most powerful existence under the heavenly law. At that time, he would also rise to the heavens along with them. Just thinking about it made him excited. Ren Niming smiled mysteriously and said, "The void." After saying that, he took the lead and soared into the sky, and the others followed closely behind. During the flight, Si Mengyan curiously asked Ren Niming about his relationship with Barbarian God Huang Luo. Ren Niming didn't hide anything. A long time ago, when there were no heavenly saints, he had once saved Barbarian God Huang Luo and taught him to become stronger. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was actually the teacher of Barbarian God Huang Luo, the teacher of Heavenly Saint. But this matter would damage Barbarian God Huang Luo's reputation, so he did not announce it, and Barbarian God Huang Luo did not mention it either. TSKDSK, the Heavenly Saint is really stingy. Xiao shook his head and sighed. He never had much respect for the Heavenly Saints. After all, he was of the same generation as the Heavenly Saints and was even the senior of some of them. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Who is the strongest among the Heavenly Saints?" So far, he only knew about the 6 sages. They were Reverend Dao Jing, Old Ancestor Hong Shi, Heavenly Lord Xiantai, Buddha Yangling, and Barbarian God Huang Luo. As for the 4 saints, they had yet to appear in his line of sight. It should be Sheng Tian Dao. You should know his arrogance just by hearing his name. Ren Niming said without hesitation. Sima Yin's eyelids twitched as he asked, "Isn't this name taboo?" Ren Niming said meaningfully, "He did it first, but he overcame it." This sentence contained a lot of deep meaning. Could it be that the Sheng Tian Dao was so powerful that the heavenly Dao couldn't restrain it? I hope he doesn't make an enemy out of us. Otherwise, Qiuhu said with a smile. He glanced at Zhou Xuanji with an expression that said, "I'll leave it to you." Zhou Xuanji pretended not to see it, and the group quickly flew past the 33rd heaven. Looks like I have to find a chance to release the souls of the powerful beings. Zhou Xuanji thought to himself. He had long since agreed to this, and if something happened to him one day, wouldn't he implicate the souls of these powerhouses? He took out the ancient god sword and communicated with the souls of the great beings. The current situation was that Wanshan Great Thousand was not suitable for reincarnation. This trip to the starry sky could give him a chance. Other than Venerable Xian and Venerable Xiantian, all the other souls were willing to reincarnate. They also understood Zhou Xuanji's situation, and now was not the time to be emotional. Xianzun was too ashamed to be resurrected. Dao Lord Xiantian felt that following Zhou Xuanji was the greatest serendipity. 3 days later, they arrived at a floating island in the starry sky. The island looked very ordinary, and it did not have dense spiritual qi. Qiuhu asked curiously, what fortuitous encounter can make him stronger? Ren Niming smiled. Without saying anything, he took the lead and walked into the island. The island was not big, only a few miles in length and width. There were piles of rocks on the island, and not a single plant could be seen. Ren Niming walked to the center of the island and moved a huge rock away, revealing a pitch-black cave entrance. This cave is an independent world, and it contains the Overlord Saint's sacred elixir. Ren Niming said with a smile. He was the first to jump in. The Overlord Saint's Saint Elixir? Zhou Xuanji and the others felt quite curious and jumped in. Passing through the darkness, they came to a fairyland-like world of mountains and rivers. Ren Niming flew to a waterfall and took out a black elixir that was even bigger than him. Qiuhu and Si Mengyan were shocked. "Are you sure you want to eat it?" Si Mengyan swallowed his saliva and asked carefully. He could sense that the sacred elixir contained extremely domineering energy. Even from a distance, it gave them goosebumps. Ren Niming brought the elixir to Zhou Xuanji and the others and smiled. "So only he can eat it. You guys don't have the fortune to enjoy it." Zhou Xuanji was expressionless, but he cursed in his heart. "What the? Are you trying to stuff me to death?" Even though his body had transformed, he still felt that it was too much. Ren Niming said with a smile, "Don't worry. This elixir is not meant to be eaten. Place your hand on it and activate your World Buddha art." Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said, "You know a lot." He did not mention the World Buddha art to Ren Niming. Back then, when Gu Tianxia created this energy technique, I gave him some suggestions too. Once you activate this energy technique, I can sense it. Ren Niming chuckled, concealing his fame and achievements. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. Why did he feel that Ren Niming, the old beggar, and the old immortal shared the same persona? It was as though history was created by the three of them. After Ren Niming put down the sacred elixir, Zhou Xuanji placed his hand on it and activated world internalization to absorb the violent energy within the sacred elixir. As he absorbed, he asked, "Wasn't the Overlord Saint banished by destiny? How did you find the sacred elixir?" Ren Niming shrugged and smiled. "I was destiny before, so I can find the source of destiny." Qiuhu came over and asked, "Since that's the case, take us there and destroy fate." Ren Niming glanced at him and shook his head condescendingly, as though he was looking at a fool. Qiuhu was infuriated, but did not know what to say. "When you get there, destiny can easily kill you. Don't forget, destiny already has its own consciousness." Ren Niming looked at Zhou Xuanji and said intently. Zhou Xuanji understood what he meant. As long as they were powerful enough, Ren Niming could lead the way and destroy destiny. Before that, they could only work hard to become more powerful. "Okay, you guys wait here. I'll go out and gather more information. Rin Niming left quickly. Xiao Hu and Si Mingyin found a place and began cultivating. Occasionally, they would converse with Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji continued to challenge his limits to absorb the energy within the sacred elixir as soon as possible. But the energy within the sacred elixir was too massive, as though it was inexhaustible. He began to enjoy the feeling of becoming more powerful. A year later, he broke through to connecting heaven level 7 and his cultivation sword. Rin Niming finally returned. With a mocking smile, he said, "We have one more enemy. Grandmaster Yushuan is interested in your heavenly law of violet qi. He's really courting death." Xiao Hu and Si Mingyin walked over immediately and asked what happened. It turned out that Grandmaster Yushuan had gathered dozens of realm lords from independent realms to attack Zhou Xuanji. "You seem to look down on Grandmaster Yushuan," Zhou Xuanji said with squinted eyes. How powerful was Rin Niming? This guy was destiny too. He might be very powerful already. Grandmaster Yushuan has always been at a disadvantage among the heavenly saints. He's blindly arrogant and easily envious. We might be able to make use of him, Rin Niming said with a smile. Evidently, he had already come up with a plan to deal with Grandmaster Yushuan. Their target was still Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Si Mingyin asked, "Will Grandmaster Yushuan ally with Heavenly Lord Xiantai?" With another heavenly saint as their enemy, the pressure on them would naturally increase. Rin Niming shook his head and said, "He's already bewitched by destiny. He will become a third force." Chapter 605. A third party? Xiao Hu and Si Mingyin looked at each other and felt that this was interesting. This was good as well. With one more *T stirring stick, the pressure on them would also be reduced. Zhou Xuanji did not take Grandmaster Yushuanzong seriously. He did not even know who his opponent was, and he had no idea how this fellow had become a saint. "Hey, are you not going to help us become stronger?" Xiao Hu shouted at Rin Niming. His next opponent would be a heavenly saint, and he did not want to be cannon fodder. Si Mingyin also looked at Rin Niming with a burning gaze. Until today, they were completely convinced by Rin Niming. This guy really had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. He could almost be said to be omnipotent. Rin Niming thought for a moment and said, "Then follow me." Following this, he left with Xiao Hu and Si Mingyin. Zhou Xuanji did not stop him and continued to focus on absorbing the Overlord Saint's Saint Pellet. While Rin Niming and the other two were gone, he released Emperor Hanlin, Saber Monarch Donghai, Emperor Songhai, Ghost Emperor Zhangtian, and Emperor Zhao, allowing them to leave on their own. "I will never forget this favor. Stinking brat. Wait for us to become stronger and come back to help you. Don't die. Take care. Remember, be careful in everything you do. Don't be reckless." The souls of the 5 almighty beings each gave a warning before quickly leaving. Looking at their departing souls, Zhou Xuanji inwardly sighed in amazement. Time passed so quickly. Back then, he still had to rely on the 9 souls, but now he had let them go. They will regret it. I have a premonition that after this tribulation, you will completely transform. At that time, it will be difficult for them to return. Tao Lord Xuantian's voice resounded in Zhou Xuanji's mind. He shook his head with a smile and asked, "Aren't you afraid that I'll drag you down with me?" Tao Master Xiantian snorted. "If you wanted to die, you would have died long ago." His words were filled with trust for Zhou Xuanji. "Death is not scary," Venerable Xian said. The two of them had similar names, and they stayed at the same time. Zhou Xuanji suspected that they were brothers, or perhaps they were the same person, just a split soul. After that, Zhou Xuanji continued to absorb the saint pellet while paying attention to the world and the lotus. Years passed by. The sword spirit would remind him of the time on time. Every year, he would send him a godly sword. Occasionally, he would also send him sword techniques and magical treasures. 10 years later, he had reached the 9 levels of connecting heaven and was beginning to break through to the 10 levels of connecting heaven. The further he went, the more energy he needed to break through each level. In these 10 years, Rin Niming had returned once and said that Xiao Hu and Si Mingyin were still cultivating before leaving. On this day, he descended on a seven-colored ray of light, his face full of smiles. He flew behind Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile, "The outside world is in complete chaos. You did not appear for a long time, and Heavenly Lord Xiantai and barbarian god Huang Luo have already started fighting. More than 100 million creatures from both factions are fighting, and the Wanxin Great Thousand has become a relatively safer place." Zhou Xuanji asked, "Did the Imperial Mystery Sect take any action?" Ren Niming nodded and explained the situation of the Great Thousand World to him. Yu Xuanzong wanted to find Zhou Xuanji, but the Wanxin Great Thousand had been taken over by Heavenly Lord Xiantai. As such, he had no choice but to fight with Heavenly Lord Xiantai. However, Zhou Xuanji had not truly appeared yet, so Yu Xuanzong only provoked Heavenly Lord Xiantai and did not start a full-scale battle. What was worth mentioning was that the Yu Xian sect had gathered the realm masters of dozens of independent worlds surrounding the Wanxin Great Thousand. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was fighting barbarian god Huang Luo while guarding against Yu Xianzong at the same time. It was extremely difficult. Unknowingly, the heavenly saints had started to fight amongst themselves. Ren Niming said, "The current situation is very beneficial to us. The heavenly law's rules have already begun to operate, and destiny cannot be controlled as we wish. As such, we do not need to be anxious and can steadily become stronger." Zhou Xuanji nodded. This was indeed good news. "That's right. Your revered teacher is not a creature under the heavenly law, right? Recently, he has been nurturing Gu Tianxia and has been active in various battlefields. At the same time, he is also searching for the heavenly law of violet qi to revive Su Qing," Ren Niming said. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji's eyes narrowed. Gu Tianxia? He did not know whether to laugh or feel bad. Both of them had helped him, but when he was in danger, the old beggar had not been by his side. The next time they met, there would most likely be a gap between them. He shook his head and did not think too much about it. He could not hate the old beggar because of this. Let me remind you, do not give the heavenly law of violet qi to him. Su Qing is not simple, and if he obtains the heavenly law of violet qi and becomes a saint, he will definitely bring disaster to you," Ren Niming said seriously. Ren Niming said solemnly. When he mentioned Su Qing, his gaze was a little strange. Zhou Xuanji asked, "What's wrong with Su Qing?" Ren Niming shook his head and did not speak further. Seeing this, Zhou Xuanji did not bother to ask further. "After you finish absorbing the saint pellet, we will depart. We will help you grow stronger in battle until you can challenge destiny." After saying this, Ren Niming left hurriedly. Zhou Xuanji began to look forward to the battles in the future. He could already sense that he had become much more powerful. When he reached connecting heaven level 10, with 3-9 extreme legendary swords, he would be able to slay gods and Buddhas. 5 years later, Zhou Xuanji reached 378 years old and finally broke through to connecting heaven level 10. His celestial energy grew tremendously, and the saint pellet in front of him was only the size of a fist. Just when he broke through, he felt that his body was like magma from the Earth's core. His celestial energy was boiling. More accurately, his magic energy was no longer celestial energy. It was saint energy, the power of an overlord saint. Too powerful. You're not even 400 years old yet. Dao Lord Xiantian cried out in shock in Zhou Xuanji's mind. In order not to be lonely, he put the ancient god sword aside. Sovereign Xian sighed in amazement. "It's hard to imagine how far you will go." Zhou Xuanji smiled, but did not reply. After he finished absorbing the remaining saint pellet, he would be able to leave this world. He waited patiently with a calm heart. 5 days later, he absorbed the saint pellet completely. Because Ren Niming had not returned yet, he could only wait here. He asked the demon god to guard outside while he entered the lotus world. Half a year later, he came out with Zhou Shaoxian. "I'm finally out," Zhou Shaoxian cried out excitedly. This girl wanted to come out every day. The lotus world was huge, but she felt that it was more interesting outside. Zhou Xuanji sat on a rock by the river and asked, "How are your eyes recently?" He realized that Zhou Xiaoshuan's pupils had turned completely purple, just like him. It's all right. I don't feel any discomfort usually. Zhou Xiaoxian nodded. Then she moved closer to Zhou Xuanji and giggled. Father, can I go and watch when you challenge the heavenly saints? Her cultivation had grown tremendously and was about to break through to heavenly law true God, so she felt that she was very powerful. Zhou Xuanji threw her a stare and said, No, Zhou Xiaoxian curled her lip. Just when she was about to speak, the ground shook violently. The father and daughter turned around and saw a black shadow tearing through the space and stepping in like a demon god walking out from the abyss. It was the shadow of the Overlord Saint. Chapter 606. Who is he? Zhou Xiaoxian asked anxiously. She quickly took out her sword. The Overlord Saint's aura was extremely powerful. It was her first time feeling such a powerful aura. Facing the Overlord Saint, she suddenly felt that she was too arrogant. Her father's enemy was so powerful, and she still wanted to join in the fun. Overlord Saint, the last one banished by destiny, Zhou Xuanji replied calmly. The thunderclap sword appeared in his right hand, and demon god Tianwu and demon god Nanming fused into his body. He took a step forward and shielded Zhou Xiaoxian behind him. You still want to watch the fun? He asked with a faint smile. He no longer took the Overlord Saint seriously. If the opponent was a heavenly saint, he would definitely put Zhou Xiaoxian into the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. Zhou Xiaoxian bit her lip lightly and said, Father, should we run? She looked at the Overlord Saint in the horizon and realized that the Overlord Saint did not come. It was as though he was waiting for something. No need. Your father is no longer the same as before, Zhou Xuanji replied. He was also curious why the Overlord Saint did not move. Could there be other enemies? He remembered that Ren Niming said that many powerful cultivators were devoured by destiny. They might have become destiny's puppets to deal with him in the future. Zhou Xuanji tossed out the thunderclap sword and activated ranged sword propelling. Boom! The Overlord Saint was pierced by the thunderclap sword. Heavenly lightning weaved on his body and tore him apart. Zhou Xuanji, who was at connecting heaven level 10, was much more powerful than before. Moreover, he had the power of the Overlord Saint. His power had undergone a qualitative transformation. A full-powered slash was enough to destroy the Overlord Saint's soul. Zhou Xiaoxian opened her eyes wide and cried out in excitement. Father, you're too powerful. She jumped on the spot and almost threw the sword at Zhou Xuanji. At this moment, a figure walked out from the spatial crack that the Overlord Saint had torn open. This person wore silver armor and a muscular body. He wore a golden helmet with a dragon head and gave off a powerful aura. 18 silver spears floated behind him in the shape of a fan. He turned to look at Zhou Xuanji. His eyes were cold and filled with murderous intent. Who is he? Zhou Xiaoxian asked carefully. This person was not simple. She felt that he was more dangerous than the Overlord Saint. I'm not sure, Zhou Xuanji said softly. After that, he put Zhou Xiaoxian into the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus. He took out several hundred divine swords and flew up as well. He used sword sect Immortal Ghost Weep and walked toward the silver-armored man. Even though he didn't know who the other party was, the other party's killing intent was clear. Since that was the case, there was no need to ask about his origins. Just kill them. I am the dragon race's war god, Ao Lai Gang. Zhou Xuanji, hand over the 2 heavenly law violet chi, and I can spare your life, said the silver armor man. The 18 silver spears on his back suddenly grew taller, reaching a length of 100 zhang. Spear chi soared into the sky, and silver dragons coiled around the spears. Their auras shook the small world so much that it began to collapse. Zhou Xuanji's expression did not change. Such nonsense again. As he moved forward, he asked, Do you serve the dragons, or fate? Hearing this, Ao Lai Gang harumphed coldly and said proudly, I am the ancestor of the dragon race. I control the power of destiny. Even a heavenly saint cannot do anything to me. I'm fighting for myself. Control the power of destiny? It was ridiculous. Zhou Xuanji used the sword fusion technique straight away and fused all the legendary swords into his body. Only the Thunderclap sword was left in his hand. As for the Saint Slayer sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword, he did not dare to take them out. If he fused the 2-9 extreme swords into his body, it would be too much for him to bear. In an instant, he felt a violent power surging out of his body. It was as though the power would explode with a casual swing of his hand. It was an indescribable feeling. A.O. Ligang sensed his aura, and his pupils contracted. Such a powerful aura. It shouldn't be, he frowned deeply. He used the power of destiny to locate Zhou Xuanji and tested Zhou Xuanji's power. Although Zhou Xuanji was not bad, he could not be compared to him at all. Zhou Xuanji suddenly used the 10,000 ultimate steps and streaked across the sky like a stream of white light. A.O. Ligang backed off immediately, and the 18 silver spears behind him pierced forward. The wind and thunder rumbled. Boom! The sword flashed, and the 18 silver spears were blasted away. Pshhhhh. The thunderclap sword pierced into A.O. Liagong's chest. He opened his eyes wide in shock. Disbelief was written all over his face. Such speed? Why is it like this? A.O. Ligang could not believe his eyes. He was only half a step away from becoming a heavenly saint, and he was pierced by a connecting heaven level 10 cultivator. Zhou Xuanji smiled. He jerked his right hand, and the thunderclap sword shot out billions of lightning bolts, which blasted A.O. Liagong's body apart instantly. A dragon soul appeared on the blade, and he roared with all his might. Roar! The dragon roar pierced through the space and resounded across countless worlds. Even the world within the 24-rank Deep Black Lotus could hear it. The dragon ancestor had fallen, and all worlds trembled. Zhou Xuanji used world internalization to absorb A.O. Liagong's magic energy. A.O. Ligang was strong-willed and chose to explode his soul straight away. Boom! The powerful radiance from the explosion engulfed Zhou Xuanji's body instantly, and the small world shattered instantly. The floating island outside shattered as well. The horrifying shockwave swept in all directions, destroying numerous asteroids and stars. The demon realm. In a palace, Xian Xianghua was entertaining the lords of various worlds. The dragon roar exploded suddenly, and everyone got up in shock. What's going on? This dragon roar. It seems to be A.O. Ligang. It can't be. He was someone who almost became a heavenly saint. Who killed the dragon ancestor? The realm lords discussed in fear. They were very familiar with A.O. Ligang. How could someone who was almost invincible be killed? Xian Xianghua frowned. As the new realm lord, she did not know about A.O. Ligang. She asked, "Is it only the heavenly saint who can kill A.O. Ligang?" The realm lords were silent for a while before nodding. Thinking of the heavenly saint, all the realm lords felt a headache. They gathered this time because they wanted to work together. The heavenly saints were already fighting among themselves, and they did not want to be cannon fodder. This would be an unprecedented catastrophe, because one heavenly saint had already fallen, and another had left the void. Everyone, the situation is getting more and more dangerous. We must come up with a plan and work together. Otherwise, everyone below the heavenly saint will be ants, and no one will survive. Xian Xianghua knocked on the armrest and said casually. The realm lords turned their attention back to her. The one who died was A.O. Ligang. Who would die next? A realm lord reminded. Grandmaster Yushuan wants us to deal with Zhou Xuanji. We can't refuse. They dared to gather here because Grandmaster Yushuan was busy fighting with Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Zhou Xuanji had not appeared for a long time, so Grandmaster Yushuan ignored them. Of course, we must deal with Zhou Xuanji, but we can propose another plan. Xian Xianghua said with a smile, but she was mocking them in her heart. You want to kill my little Lang Jun? Let's see if I don't kill you. Chapter 607. Zhou Xuanji appeared in the starry sky, his black clothes not damaged at all. Ao Liagong's self-destruction was nothing in his eyes. Disregarding magic power, his physical body could withstand it. He cracked his neck and looked at the vast starry sky. He was considering whether or not he should directly look for Emperor Xiantai. Previously, when he faced his fate, his heart was heavy. Now, he felt a sense of relief, as if the clouds had parted and he could see the sun. Slaying a saint. He wanted to kill the saint now. He wanted to step on Heavenly Lord Xuantia's corpse, continue to grow stronger, and finally challenge fate. Ren Niming and the other two hadn't returned yet, so he was hesitating whether he should wait or not. He thought about it and decided to go alone. With Ren Niming's ability, he would definitely be able to find him. With that thought, he flew in a certain direction. He didn't know where Heavenly Lord Xiantai was, so he headed to the Abyss Pearl mainland first. The main body of the Abyss Pearl mainland was the Divine Moon, and he planned to liberate the Divine Moon. Back then, the Abyss Pearl mainland had helped him fight the war between the two worlds. Now that he had the ability, he naturally had to help them. At the same time, he would go and take a look at the Great Thousand Worlds under old Ancestor Homeshire's control to see if they had encountered any battles between heavenly saints. Not long after he left, Ren Niming arrived. Ao Liagong's aura. He's dead. Ren Niming frowned and muttered to himself. He understood Ao Liagong's strength very well. If it was anyone else who absorbed the sacred elixir, they might be able to defeat Ao Ligang, but it would be too difficult to kill him. It was almost impossible. Zhou Xuanji, what other secrets do you have? Where did your swords come from? Ren Niming mumbled to himself. He did not think too much and began tracking Zhou Xuanji's aura. After killing Ao Ligang, Zhou Xuanji was attacked one after another. The cultivations of these experts were all above connecting heaven level 10. Some were like overlord saints who had no intelligence. Some were like Ao Ligang, who claimed to have grasped the power of destiny. Zhou Xuanji killed them one by one. At the same time, he lost his way and did not know where the Abyss Pearl mainland was. Strange, these fellows think they control the power of fate, but why don't they know each other? Zhou Xuanji thought to himself as he flew. As for keeping a low profile, he felt that it was impossible, because each of those guys was crazier than the last. It seemed like there were some unknown secrets behind this. Half a month later, he suddenly stopped and followed his gaze, only to see three figures rushing towards him. They were the old beggar, Gu Tianxia, and Su Qing. Su Qing was still in a deranged state. His body was covered with talismans and was trembling slightly, as if he was trying to restrain his emotions. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, the old beggar was stunned. He did not dodge and quickly came up to Zhou Xuanji. He asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" He thought that Zhou Xuanji was cultivating at the old immortal's place. Gu Tianxia sized up Zhou Xuanji and was astonished in his heart. He could sense that Zhou Xuanji had transformed. What did this kid experience? What a terrifying aura. Su Qing suddenly became irritable, growling nonstop. "I want to look for Heavenly Lord Xiantai," Zhou Xuanji replied. He looked at Gu Tianxia and continued, "Can you teach me the mental energy technique above level 3 of the World Buddha art? Find Heavenly Lord Xiantai?" The old beggar was stunned and felt a little absurd. How long had it been? Zhou Xuanji already had the power to rival heavenly saints? The first 3 levels of the World Buddha art are the quintessence. The 4th and 5th levels that I created are useless. I have already abolished them. If you learn them, you might be putting the cart before the horse. Gu Tianxia said as he shook his head. He was not a petty person. Until now, he had never asked Zhou Xuanji for the Tianxia map. Zhou Xuanji nodded and was about to leave when the old beggar suddenly stopped him. "Do you have 2 Heaven's Path Violet Chi? How about letting me have one?" The old beggar rubbed his hands and said with a pleading tone. Facing Zhou Xuanji, he was too embarrassed to display his dignity as a revered teacher. Zhou Xuanji stared at him and said, "Reviving Su Qing and letting him become a saint might bring harm to the world. Are you sure?" The old beggar gritted his teeth and said, "When he becomes a saint, I will take him away and never return to the boundless world." Zhou Xuanji frowned and did not know how to reject. "Roar, Su Qing roared agitatedly, his voice getting louder and louder like a ferocious demon. Gu Tianxiao looked at Su Qing strangely. What's wrong with this guy? The old beggar did not care about Su Qing and begged Zhou Xuanji, "My good disciple, I will only beg you this once. Give me one, just one." Roar! Su Qing roared crazily. His voice was like thunder, and the talismans on his body fluttered nonstop. The old beggar hurriedly turned around and suppressed his violence. Su Yang. Su Qing stared at Zhou Xuanji with bloodshot eyes and roared hoarsely. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. Su Yang? Could it be? Su Yang was Su Qing's brother? He was dumbfounded. Was this really true? The old beggar looked back at Zhou Xuanji and said with an awkward smile, "He's crazy. You should know that he's obsessed with his little brother." He could not help but sigh at the mention of Su Yang. Su Yang had died countless years ago, and this was something that he did not want to talk about the most. He did not mention it to Zhou Xuanji and Zhou Shaoxian either. Zhou Xuanji said with a strange expression, "Su Yang is in my enchanted artifact. He is my grand disciple in this life." Su Yang was Xiao Jinghong's only disciple. Back then, Dahlia Old Man said that he was the reincarnation of a powerful cultivator. Until now, he had not awakened. The old beggar heard him and opened his eyes wide. His body trembled as he swallowed his saliva and asked carefully, "Is what you said true?" Zhou Xuanji nodded and brought Su Yang out from the world in the lotus. When Su Yang appeared and saw the starry sky around him, his body trembled in fear. Just when he was about to cry out, he saw Zhou Xuanji beside him and heaved a sigh of relief. He patted his chest and said bitterly, "Grand teacher, why are you looking for me? Why so suddenly?" Fortunately, he did not do anything shameful before, or else it would have been awkward. "It's really you," the old beggar said with a trembling voice. He moved closer to Su Yang instinctively, and Su Yang hid behind Zhou Xuanji out of fear. At this moment, Su Qing suddenly went crazy and began tearing at the talisman on his body. The old beggar quickly tried to suppress him, but no matter how much magic energy he channeled, Su Qing could not regain his composure. Gu Tianxiao tried to help, but it was still useless. Su Yang was frightened by the furious Su Qing, especially his bloodshot eyes, which almost made him pee in his pants. Zhou Xuanji appeared in front of Su Qing out of nowhere. He stretched out his right hand and tapped Su Qing's forehead with his index finger. The power of the Overlord Saint froze Su Qing's body immediately. The old beggar looked at him in shock. How powerful was this brat now? Zhou Xuanji asked, "You are so powerful. Did you not divine that Su Yang was under my control?" The old beggar could not help but look at Su Yang. His gaze was complicated, filled with surprise and regret. Su Yang was frightened by his gaze. Who was this old man? The two brothers were sealed by the heavenly law. I could not divine them at all, the old beggar sighed. He helped the birth of the heavenly law, but the heavenly law took away the person he cared about the most. How ironic. Chapter 608. After the old beggar met Su Yang, he was very excited and kept talking to Su Yang. Su Yang also found out about his previous life. He did not feel complicated. He was not angry or unwilling, but rather excited. As expected, my background is indeed powerful. Su Yang gripped his fists, feeling excited as if he was the main character. Zhou Xuanji said unpleasantly, "Look at your elder brother's outcome. Do you want to end up like him?" Su Yang turned to look at Su Qing, and when he met Su Qing's bloodshot eyes, he immediately shuddered. The old beggar said excitedly, "It's okay. As long as you have 2 heavenly law violet qi, you can break free from the heavenly law's seal." Zhou Xuanji heard him and narrowed his eyes. Just as expected, the old beggar looked at him and said, "Aren't you walking the path of the Overlord Saint? Can you give me your 2 heavenly law violet qi?" Zhou Xuanji was speechless. Even Gu Tianxia shook his head. How could he do that? There was only so much heavenly law violet qi. Why should he give it to his disciple? It would be fine if he gave it to the old beggar, but the old beggar was asking for it on behalf of his other 2 disciples. He was being unreasonable. Su Yang understood and said with a frown, "Okay, so you were waiting for me here. Grand Teacher, ignore him. You risked your life to protect these two heavenly law violet chi. So what if you're his disciple? He didn't even consider you." Hearing this, the old beggar became anxious. "Stinking brat, what are you talking about? I'm fighting for you too," he said impatiently. Su Yang glanced at him disdainfully and said, "How do I know you don't have any other intentions towards me? Moreover, only by following Grand Teacher can I be at ease. Even without the heavenly law of violet chi, I believe that by following him, I will still become a heavenly saint. After all, Grand Teacher said that his final goal is not to become a heavenly saint." The old beggar was completely speechless. He looked at Zhou Xuanji bitterly, using his gaze to ask him, "What kind of magic potion did you give him?" Zhou Xuanji said calmly, "I can't give you the heavenly law of violet chi. If you want it, I can help you take it. After I destroy Heavenly Lord Xiantai, that heavenly law of violet chi will belong to you. As for Su Yang, he's my grand disciple and will follow me in the future." Su Yang nodded furiously and said, I am Emperor Sword Court's eldest senior brother. I cannot leave." He looked around. This was his first time in space, and he was very curious. Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand and sent him into the Lotus World. "All right, do you want to follow me to look for Heavenly Lord Xiantai?" Zhou Xuanji asked, and the old beggar nodded with gritted teeth, his eyes still filled with resentment. Gu Tianxia hesitated for a while before nodding. He also wanted to know how powerful Zhou Xuanji was. The four of them immediately flew toward the Abyss Pearl mainland. The old beggar knew the direction of the Abyss Pearl mainland, which saved Zhou Xuanji a lot of trouble. On the way, they were very curious about how Zhou Xuanji's cultivation had increased so quickly. Zhou Xuanji did not hide anything and told them about Ren Niming and the Overlord Saint Pellet. As for the truth that Ren Niming was destiny, he did not mention it. Ren Niming, that kid is really still alive. The old beggar's eyes flickered as he sighed. Shortly after, he told them about his relationship with Ren Niming. Ren Niming was one of the first batch of living beings after the heavenly law was established. He knew the old immortal and the old beggar, but he refused to take them as his teacher and did things his own way. Over the years, they had their own plans and often clashed. Until today, the old beggar could no longer see through Ren Niming. "Be careful of him. Don't think that he's helping you now. He might have other motives," the old beggar reminded. Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile. Gu Tianxia asked, "What's your goal? Heavenly Saint? Or Kunlun Origin Court?" TSK. He even knew about Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji glanced at the old beggar, and the old beggar felt a little awkward. Zhou Xuanji learned about these things from the old immortal. Kunlun Origin Court. Heavenly Saint is not my final destination. I'm not walking the path of a heavenly saint, Zhou Xuanji replied. He had to go to Kunlun Origin Court to take a look. Why was he banished by destiny? And where did he come from? Where did the primordial chaos life force that the supreme legendary sword system represented come from? If he could not solve these questions, he would pursue them for the rest of his life. Gu Tianxia nodded. He thought for a while and said, "If you want to leave in the future, can you bring me along? I will join Emperor Sword Court and serve you." With this, the old beggar opened his eyes wide. Zhou Xuanji was a little surprised too. "Why are you going to Kunlun Origin Court? It's very dangerous. Kunlun Origin Court rejects foreign objects. Be careful, or they will kill you," the old beggar said in a frenzy. Why were his disciples so troublesome? Gu Tianxia smiled and said, "I always feel that this brat will be amazing in the future, even beyond your expectations. Following him will be exciting." He had witnessed Zhou Xuanji's growth in the Tianxia map. Every time Zhou Xuanji activated the Tianxia map, he could see everything that happened to Zhou Xuanji. Only those who witnessed Zhou Xuanji's growth knew how terrifying his potential was. This was also the reason why Su Yang was so loyal to him. The old beggar fell silent and fell into deep thought. Half a month later, they finally came to the Abyss Pearl mainland. Zhou Xuanji looked down at the Abyss Pearl mainland. He took out the Nine-Moon Execution Sword and activated the Divine Moon's power to establish a spiritual connection with the Abyss Pearl mainland. The old beggar and Gu Tianxia did not disturb him. Their eyes were fixed on the Nine-Moon Execution Sword. Soon, Zhou Xuanji's consciousness established a connection with the Abyss Pearl mainland. He asked the Abyss Pearl mainland if it wanted to leave this world of suffering. He could help the Divine Moon reincarnate. Although the Divine Moon was a star, it had developed intelligence and was considered a living being. It could reincarnate as long as it had a soul. The Abyss Pearl mainland replied that it did not want to reincarnate. TSK. I didn't expect the Abyss Pearl mainland to be transformed from a divine moon. Hongshi is really good, the old beggar praised. The Divine Moon was a miraculous existence under the heavenly law. It contained more power than the sun. Zhou Xuanji ignored him, and Gu Tianxia did not reply. After a short conversation, the Abyss Pearl mainland made its choice. It hoped that Zhou Xuanji would accept it. The living beings on the mainland would follow it and form an independent world. The Abyss Pearl mainland glowed with a powerful radiance. At first glance, it seemed to have returned to its divine moon state. The universe heaven cultivators flew out of the Abyss Pearl mainland in fear. Soon, the Abyss Pearl mainland shrunk into a jade bead and flew toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji caught it easily. The bead was only the size of a fist, and the Abyss Pearl mainland was hidden within it. He scanned the bead with his divine sense and saw all the living beings on the continent. A ball of flame flew toward the four of them. As the flame dissipated, Feng Yuxiu appeared. She looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression and asked, "Why did you take away the Abyss Pearl mainland?" She was old ancestor Hongshi's disciple. She knew why old ancestor Hongshi died. Zhou Xuanji waved the jade bead in his hand and said, "This is the Abyss Pearl mainland's will." Chapter 609. The Abyss Pearl mainland's own will? Feng Yuxiu felt a bit dazed, and she could not help but think back to when Zhou Xuanji had slaughtered everyone in the Abyss Pearl mainland. At that time, the Abyss Pearl mainland was helping him. "What's your plan?" Zhou Xuanji changed the subject and asked. He had already found out about the relationship between Feng Yuxiu and old ancestor Hongshi from Si Mingyan. Currently, Feng Yuxiu had no one to rely on. Feng Yuxiu shook her head and said, "I'll leave it up to fate. You've taken the Abyss Pearl mainland, so I can only wander about and see if there's a suitable place to establish an abode." The old beggar showed a curious look and looked back and forth between the two of them. Gu Tianxia looked in another direction, as if he was looking at something indecent. Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, "You can continue to cultivate in the Abyss Pearl mainland. I will not disturb you." Feng Yuxiu frowned and hesitated. "You can also join my Emperor's Sword Court. My disciples and grand disciples are all in one of my treasures, forming their own world. The spiritual qi there is not inferior to that of the Great Thousand World." Zhou Xuanji threw out an olive branch. Feng Yuxiu was a top-tier existence in universe heaven and had great talent. Her achievements would be even greater in the future, and it would not be a loss to bring her into the court. Adding on Xiu Hu, Shiji 6 Immortals, Chiyu Boy, and Gu Jianzun, Emperor's Sword Court already had the strength of an Overlord-class force. Feng Yuxiu thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Zhou Xuanji said a few words and sent her into the Lotus World. He asked Dahlia Old Man to receive her and arrange a place for her to stay. He especially sent a telepathic message to all the elders of Emperor's Sword Court, telling them about Feng Yuxiu's cultivation and background so that no one would anger her. After doing all of this, Zhou Xuanji and the others continued to search for Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was probably near the Wanshan Great Thousand, and the Zhonggan Great Thousand they were in was not far from the Wanshan Great Thousand. Unlike Wanshan Great Thousand, Zhonggan Great Thousand had already split into dozens of continents. The specific reason for this was probably related to the fall of old ancestor Hongshi. "We are looking for Emperor Xiantai. He should be able to sense it, but he hasn't appeared yet. Either he can't free himself, or he's planning something. The old beggar said in a solemn tone. Zhou Xuanji's expression did not change and said, "No matter what he's planning, it's meaningless." The old beggar and Gu Tianxia looked at him deeply. Absolute confidence often came from powerful strength. They also believed that Zhou Xuanji had faced the heavenly saints before and was not blindly arrogant. Among the countless stars, Heavenly Lord Xiantai sat on an asteroid. Many figures floated in the starry sky around him. They were all meditating and cultivating. Heavenly Lord Xiantai opened his eyes and said faintly, "Zhou Xuanji is coming soon. The serendipity is before you. It all depends on your own abilities." As soon as he said that, everyone opened their eyes and powerful auras burst forth. Among them, the weakest cultivation strength was at Universe Heaven Level 7. Apart from listening to Heavenly Master Xuantia's lecture, the most important thing for them to gather here was the Heavenly Tao Purple Essence. Heavenly Lord Xiantai had predicted that Zhou Xuanji would come looking for him, so he had gathered them here. No one was worried that Zhou Xuanji had already become a saint. Anyone who became a saint would definitely cause a Heavenly Tao anomaly, just like when old ancestor Hongshu died. Zhou Xuanji is finally coming. He has 2 strands of Heavenly Law Violet Qi in his hands, yet he still dares to cause trouble for the Heavenly Saints. This kid is truly crazy. Perhaps he doesn't know the way to become a saint. No matter what, I won't dare to cause trouble for the Heavenly Saint. Isn't this helping us? The powerful cultivators discussed among themselves. They were all looking forward to Zhou Xuanji's arrival. A black shadow appeared behind Heavenly Lord Xiantai. At first glance, it looked like a shadow, and it did not move at all. Barbarian god Huang Luo is coming here too. It seems like Ren Niming has already convinced him. The black shadow said softly. The black figure said softly. When Heavenly Lord Xiantai heard this, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. "Send this news to Grandmaster Yushuan," he instructed. The black shadow disappeared immediately. At the same time, deep in the starry sky, numerous legendary swords flew over rapidly and formed a river of swords. Zhou Xuanji stood on the river of swords, while the old beggar Gu Tianxia and Su Qing followed far behind. "Aren't we going to support him?" Gu Tianxia asked with a frown. He could already sense many powerful auras and the Heavenly Saint's boundless saintly might. The old beggar gritted his teeth and said, "If we go up recklessly, we will only add more trouble to him." His eyes were fixed on Zhou Xuanji. Unknowingly, Zhou Xuanji had become so powerful that he had become a burden. "If the 2 brothers are fine, I can focus on nurturing them. Will you be more powerful than you are now?" The old beggar looked worried as he thought to himself. He could sense that his relationship with Zhou Xuanji had become estranged. Zhou Xuanji looked ahead and saw Heavenly Lord Xiantai. With a thunderclap sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword in his hands, his black robe fluttered in the wind. With 2 extreme legendary swords in his hands, he had no reason to be afraid. "Heavenly Lord Xiantai, you destroyed my Wanshan great thousand and slaughtered countless living beings. Aren't you looking for me? Today, we shall settle the score and fight to the death," he cried out coldly. His voice shook the starry sky and alerted all living beings. Swish, the living beings around Heavenly Lord Xiantai all turned around. Seeing Zhou Xuanji, they quickly took out their enchanted artifacts and stood up, charging toward him. There were only 2 Heavenly Law Violet Qi. Whoever was faster would get it. Seeing them charging at him with great momentum, Zhou Xuanji was not afraid. His lips curled up into a mocking smile. 81 sword souls condensed behind him. As he grew more powerful, his understanding of the way of the sword grew tremendously, especially after realizing the sword Tao rules. His way of the sword had surpassed all sword cultivators in the world. "All of you go to hell," Zhou Xuanji said coldly, and 81 sword souls slashed out simultaneously. Sword light flashed, and those experts subconsciously used their divine abilities to block it. Boom, boom, boom. One by one, the experts were killed by the sword souls, their souls dispersing. The river of swords beneath Zhou Xuanji's feet sped up, and a steady stream of magic energy entered his body through world internalization. Since you're courting death, let me help you. As Zhou Xuanji spoke, the Emperor's Way thousand-hand sword Buddha condensed behind him. It gave off resplendent golden light and was millions of meters tall, and 1,000 swords slashed out simultaneously. Buddha said, "A flower is a world." The Buddha of the sword, one sword to create a world, 1,000 swords to destroy 10,000 worlds. A deafening boom resounded. It was like the Big Bang at the beginning of a universe. Countless stars shattered, and the screams of the experts were drowned out by the explosion. Zhou Xuanji used the sword fusion technique amidst the explosion, leaving only the thunderclap sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword in his hands. Stepping on the corpses, he charged toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai amidst the blinding explosion. At this moment, he was an overlord saint, pressing forward courageously. Even a saint would find it difficult to stop. On the meteorite, Heavenly Lord Xiantai was expressionless, but his heart was filled with shock. Why was this brat so powerful? It didn't make sense. How long had it been? He immediately waved his palm, and a black halo with a diameter of 10,000 meters appeared before the meteorite. With a loud boom, black spheres of light flew out from the black halo like a black hole toward Zhou Xuanji. Chapter 610. Facing the countless black orbs of light, Zhou Xuanji's expression was cold. He slashed with his sword extremely quickly, as though he did not even draw his sword. Sword Dao rules. Slash. Bang. All the black light balls were destroyed, but there was still an endless stream of them. Zhou Xuanji leaped up quickly and raised the thunderclap sword. Billions of lightning bolts weaved into a gigantic sword of light and slashed toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai raised his right hand, his index finger and middle finger together. Using his finger as a sword, he pointed upwards. He actually managed to block the lightning sword through the air. Zhou Xuanji, you are quite powerful, but do you know how powerful a heavenly saint is? Heavenly Lord Xiantai shouted coldly. The voice of a heavenly sage shook one's soul. The powerful cultivators who had not died all dodged and looked at Zhou Xuanji in terror and despair. How could he be so strong? That sword just now, we've been tricked. Damn it. How could this be? Stay away from him. What realm is he in? I feel like even saint contenders aren't as strong as him. The powerhouses discussed animatedly. They hated heavenly venerable Xiantai to the core. Facing the heavenly saint, they did not dare to curse. They could only bury it in their hearts or vent their anger on Zhou Xuanji verbally. Zhou Xuanji activated the 9-soul fusion technique and fused the bodies of the 4 demon gods into his body. His aura surged again. He tore through space and arrived behind Heavenly Lord Xiantai in a single step. He waved the 3 clear Taiji sword with his left hand and slashed at Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai revealed a look of disdain. Those who were not sages could not even break his sage might. A layer of white light radiated from his body, isolating Zhou Xuanji. Ping! The 3 clear Taiji sword broke through the layer of white light as though it was breaking glass. The blade of the sword then slashed towards Heavenly Lord Xuanti's neck. Heavenly Lord Xiantai disappeared, and Zhou Xuanji slashed at thin air. He appeared 100 kilometers away and looked at Zhou Xuanji in shock. How is this possible? That sword just now, could it be a sword forged by a heavenly saint? No. The birth of a heavenly sage magical treasure will definitely be earth-shattering. Cold sweat dripped down Heavenly Venerate Xuanti's forehead. At this moment, he really felt a sense of crisis. Zhou Xuanji could actually injure him. This brat must be eliminated. If this kid was given more time to grow, what would happen? Heavenly Lord Xuanti's eyes turned fierce and fierce as he took out a black iron whip from his sleeve. With a shake of his right hand, the iron whip quickly grew to hundreds of thousands of feet long, burning with a dark blue flame. He looked at Zhou Xuanji furiously and said, "Stinking brat, you dare to offend the might of a heavenly saint. Today, I will show you what it means to be a heavenly saint." He lashed out with his whip, stirring up violent winds and exploding stars in the distance. Zhou Xuanji instinctively raised his two swords to block in front of him, and with a loud clang, he was sent flying backward. In that instant, he felt as if his arms were about to shatter. Fresh blood gushed out of his throat incessantly. This level of power, Zhou Xuanji's eyes were bloodshot in disbelief. This was the first time he truly fought against a heavenly saint. He did not expect the heavenly saints to be so powerful. Then how terrifying would a true overlord saint be? He gritted his teeth and forcefully steadied himself. The divine power of the 2-9 extreme divine swords poured into his body, causing the surface of his body to glow faintly. His violent aura instantly disappeared. He took a deep breath and leaped up with both swords in his hands. World suppressing. He drew a perfect arc in the vast starry sky. The thunderclap sword was below him, while the 3 clear Tai Chi sword was above him. The 2 divine powers flowed through Zhou Xuanji's body and fused together. This aura, it's like a heavenly saint. Heavenly Lord Xiantai frowned tightly. In his eyes, Zhou Xuanji's silhouette grew larger and larger. He lashed out with his black whip, destroying everything in its path. Zhou Xuanji turned into a stream of white light and clashed with the black whip. The 3 clear Tai Chi sword's blade clashed with the whip. He gritted his teeth and dashed out along the whip. Countless sparks flew. He came up to Heavenly Lord Xiantai swiftly, and heavenly lightning exploded. Boom! A horrifying explosion shook the universe. Spiritual chi surged violently, sweeping up a world-destroying gale. It was majestic and imposing. Far away, the old beggar and Gu Tianxia immediately channeled their magic energy to resist the gale. So powerful, Gu Tianxia opened his eyes wide. He swallowed his saliva and said with a trembling voice, even though he was so far away, he still felt that his soul was about to dissipate. The old beggar was stunned. He had guessed that Zhou Xuanji was powerful, but he felt that it was unbelievable to see Zhou Xuanji fight against a heavenly saint. Even in the Kunlun origin court, it was hard to find such a genius. In the powerful radiance, Zhou Xuanji danced with both swords and slashed wildly without any pattern. He suppressed Heavenly Lord Xiantai with absolute speed and power. Heavenly Lord Xiantai raised his right palm and blocked Zhou Xuanji's attack. Their eyes met, and he saw the rage and murderous intent in Zhou Xuanji's eyes. He was a little dazed. This brat wanted to kill him? Killing a saint? What a joke. This was the biggest joke in the world. He was enraged immediately. As a heavenly saint, it had been a long time since he sensed the mortal's murderous intent toward him. Even the powerful cultivators of the great thousand world trembled in fear when facing him. They could not harbor any malicious intent, but only endless fear. This brat wanted to kill him. Zhou Xuanji, I will turn your bones into ashes and consign you to eternal damnation. Heavenly Lord Xiantai roared. A violent black flame burst out and sent Zhou Xuanji flying away. His black clothes were burned into ashes in an instant. His skin cracked from the heat and blood oozed out. Fortunately, he was no longer the same as before. His body's self-healing ability was extremely powerful. He healed quickly and did not turn into bones. He quickly activated the Battle Path Flame Soul. A fiery battle armor materialized on his body, and he turned into a fire god. Brat, can you do it? Sovereign Xin cried out in Zhou Xuanji's mind, but his tone was filled with excitement. This kid really made people have a whole new level of respect for him. Zhou Xuanji licked the blood at the corner of his lips and said coldly, "The real battle begins now." He immediately used the sword fusion technique and absorbed the 3 clear Tai Chi sword into his body. 9 extreme power. His entire body turned into a white radiance, just like the divine moon's state. His aura had reached the same level as Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Impossible. Saint stage. Heavenly Lord Xiantai cried out in disbelief with his eyes wide open. His face turned hideous immediately. He immediately swung his black whip and lashed it at Zhou Xuanji. Boom! 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 The black whip bounced off Zhou Xuanji's body like a loud bell. A tempest rained down, and the stars exploded. Countless stars could not withstand the saint's might and exploded. It was like a world-shaking firework that covered the entire universe. Zhou Xuanji held the thunderclap sword with one hand and walked toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. It was his first time fusing the 9 extreme legendary sword into his body. This feeling omnipotent, the unprecedented power almost made him lose himself. He wanted to vent his anger and destroy everything. He suddenly understood the mentality of the heavenly saints. Before such power, all the schemes of mortals were useless. Today, I am the saint, and I will slay destiny in the future. Zhou Xuanji's voice came into Heavenly Lord Xuantie's ears. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was furious because he felt that this brat was provoking him. Chapter 611. Heavenly Lord Xiantai took a deep breath, and his skin rapidly turned black like black iron. His entire person seemed to have turned into darkness. With the black whip in hand, he walked toward Zhou Xuanji. At this moment, he and Zhou Xuanji only had eyes for each other. They just wanted to kill each other. Tiske, Heavenly Lord Xiantai, I didn't expect you to be in such a situation. A wild and domineering laughter resounded through the entire starry sky, and a giant figure that was 1,000,000 feet tall slowly walked out of the darkness. He was bare-chested and wore golden arm guards on his arms. His muscles were well-developed, and his lines were like mountain ranges. 2 green dragons coiled around his body, giving him a fiendish appearance. Barbarian god Huang Luo. His face was wild, and his eyes were golden. His black hair fluttered in the wind like a group of black dragons. Upon seeing him, Heavenly Venerate Xuantie's face darkened. Damn it! How did this guy get here so fast? He cursed in his heart, but on the surface he was very calm. Zhou Xuanji had already displayed the power of the Saint Realm. If he worked together with barbarian god Huang Luo, it would not bode well for him. Zhou Xuanji saw Ren Niming standing on barbarian god Huang Luo's shoulder with an evil smile. This guy is really timely. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He could not help but smile. Barbarian god Huang Luo walked over step by step and said with a hideous smile, Dark Steel, you killed Hong Shi. You are a heavenly saint. You should give up your position. There was an agreement between the heavenly sages that they could not attack each other. After all, there was a limit to the number of heavenly saints. As long as they were united, they could be heavenly saints forever and rule over everything under the heavenly law. Heavenly Lord Xiantai and Buddha Yongling worked together to kill old ancestor Hong Shi, which was a taboo between heavenly saints. The only existence that heaven saints were afraid of was heaven saints. You make it sound so easy. Berserker God Huang Luo, I might not know what you want to do, but your goal might not be as simple as punishing me. Heavenly Lord Xiantai snorted coldly, his eyes filled with disdain. Barbarian god Huang Luo came close and looked at Zhou Xuanji as he praised. Sword Emperor, you are not bad. He did not directly call Zhou Xuanji by his name, and instead called him the Sword Emperor, giving Zhou Xuanji enough face. However, his gaze made Zhou Xuanji very uncomfortable. This fellow was very aggressive, even more dangerous than Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Ren Niming flew to Zhou Xuanji's side and said telepathically, leave the rest to them. Find an opportunity to seize his saint energy. Zhou Xuanji replied, will barbarian god Huang Luo allow it? Ren Niming replied, is it that important whether he allows it or not? Trust me, none of the heavenly saints are good people. They all think for themselves. The reason why he helped you is because with one less heavenly saint, the other heavenly saints will be stronger. The power that the heavenly Tao gives to heavenly saints is fixed. Do you understand? Right now, the 7 heavenly saints are splitting this power equally. Zhou Xuanji came to a realization. This meant that every heavenly saint was fighting in the dark. While they were communicating via voice transmission, barbarian god Huang Luo and heavenly lord Xiantai were still arguing. At this moment, waves of aura came from another direction. In that direction, there was a huge crack in the space, and many figures flew out. The weakest of them were connecting heaven level 2. Behind them, there was an imposing figure. It was Yu Xianzong. Within the crowd, Xian Xianghua immediately saw Zhou Xuanji. Her eyes were filled with splendor, and she was pleasantly surprised. This kid is getting more and more powerful. Back then, in her eyes, Zhou Xuanji was just a little kid. Now, even when he stood beside the heavenly saints, his aura did not pale in comparison. She felt proud in her heart. My foresight is so powerful. I fell in love with him when he was still weak. Who else could have such foresight as me? At the same time, she felt fortunate. The man who moved her heart eventually made her admire him and rely on him. Yo, Yu Xuanzong, you are here too. Barbarian god Huang Luo laughed mockingly. The 2 azure dragons on his shoulders roared as well. Yu Xuanzong snorted with a dark expression. Today, the 3 of us will decide who is stronger here. Whoever wins can have Zhou Xuanji. Barbarian god Huang Luo and heavenly lord Xiantai heard him and laughed. Did this guy think that Zhou Xuanji was a sheep waiting to be slaughtered? Yu Xuanzong looked at Zhou Xuanji and then at Ren Niming. His pupils contracted as he thought to himself, why is this guy here? Could he be Zhou Xuanji's backer? So that's why. No wonder. Yu Xuanzong felt that he had guessed the truth. So he said, Zhou Xuanji, give me one of your heavenly law violet qi. Just one, and I will protect you. How about it? Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji frowned and said, unless you help me kill heavenly lord Xiantai. The heavenly saint was indeed a heavenly saint. He was not as stupid as Ren Niming said. Barbarian god Huang Luo laughed loudly and said, don't talk nonsense. If you want to fight, let's fight. The 2 azure dragons on his body rushed out, one towards heavenly lord Xiantai and the other towards Yu Xuanzong. The saint war erupted. Zhou Xuanji also noticed Xian Xianghua's figure, but he did not immediately acknowledge her. Their gazes met, and he understood what she was thinking. He canceled the sword fusion technique and the 9-soul fusion technique, allowing his body to rest for a while. Using these 2 divine abilities at the same time took a great toll on his body. The realm lords quickly retreated, distancing themselves from the battle. So powerful, this is a heavenly saint. The might of a saint is indeed very powerful. Even if we work together, we are not a match for a heavenly saint. This is sending us to our deaths. After they finish fighting, we might still have a chance. The realm lords discussed among themselves, while Xian Xianghua's gaze fell on Zhou Xuanji. Far away, the old beggar and Gu Tianxiao were watching the battle too. The battle between the heavenly saints forced them further away. Even though they could no longer see the heavenly saints, the shock waves from the battle were enough to make them shudder. Ren Niming, what are you planning? The old beggar mumbled to himself with an unsightly expression. With his understanding of Ren Niming, this guy definitely wanted to destroy the heavenly saints and use Zhou Xuanji as his blade. Will the other heavenly saints get involved? Gu Tianxia asked. The old beggar heard him and frowned. He suddenly felt that Gu Tianxia's guess might be true. If the heavenly saints had a chance to kick a person when he was down, they would not show mercy. Big trouble, the old beggar sighed. He looked ahead and prayed for Zhou Xuanji in his heart. Tianxia. A voice came from behind, and Gu Tianxia felt like he was struck by lightning. He looked back, trembling. The old beggar turned around as well. 7 men, wearing the same black robes, flew toward them. Their black robes had pictures of different ferocious beasts. They looked hideous and horrifying, as though they would come alive at any moment. The valiant man on the left looked at Gu Tianxia with a complicated expression. Gu Tianxia was extremely excited. You are still alive? He cried out with a trembling voice. Emperor Xia, Gu Tianxia's sworn brother, the ancestor of the humans in the northern wilderness region. Emperor Xia took a deep breath and flew up to him. I have always been alive to revive you, he said, but I did not expect the heavenly saint to be one step ahead of me. This is a good thing. Chapter 6:12. Seeing Emperor Xia and Gu Tianxia chatting excitedly, the old beggar said in amazement, "So you're brothers as well? Little boy Xia, do you remember that bastard Mo Jiuqing?" Emperor Xia nodded and sighed. Back then, I wanted to go find him, but the great Emperor Dao Court had other plans, so I couldn't show myself. Great Emperor Dao Court. The old beggar and Gu Tianxia looked at the other 6 people. These 6 people were all connecting heaven level 10 existences and gave off powerful auras that were extremely dangerous. Long time no see. I didn't think you'd still be alive. Hee, teacher of heavenly saints, we finally meet. This must be Gu Tianxia. You're not simple. Even our leader often mentions you. I advise you not to interfere in this sacred battle. The heavenly law of violet qi belongs to the great Emperor Dao Court. The 4 people from the great Emperor Dao Court spoke, while the other 2 looked at the battle in the distance. Teacher of heavenly saints? Gu Tianxia looked at the old beggar in surprise. In response, the old beggar coldly harumphed and turned his head. Emperor Xia grabbed Gu Tianxia's hand and said profoundly, "Brother, I advise you not to interfere. This battle is a trap, and half of the saints will probably die. With our cultivation, we'll be digging our own graves if we participate." The other 6 people did not stay and flew towards the battlefield. Then why did you all come? Gu Tianxia said with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. He hated the great Emperor Dao Court as well. How could he not feel anything about Emperor Xia joining the great Emperor Dao Court? It was just that he did not show it. We're not here to participate in the battle. We're just scouts. The true rulers will come through us. Emperor Xia replied honestly. The Xia Emperor replied honestly, an apologetic look in his eyes. Gu Tianxia let go and did not say anything else. The old beggar asked, "Little boy Xia, when did that bastard Mo Jiuqing join the great Emperor Dao Court?" Emperor Xia smiled and said, "Earlier than me. He was the one who brought me in." Hearing this, the old beggar became even more displeased and started to curse at Mo Jiuqing. Emperor Xia and Gu Tianxia chatted for a bit more before going to reinforce the great Emperor Dao Court. The waters of this battle are quite deep. Who would have thought that fellow would also participate? The old beggar sighed, his tone complicated. Gu Tianxia glanced at him and asked meaningfully, "Which heavenly saint is your disciple?" The old beggar shook his head and didn't want to answer. Boom, boom, boom. The intense light from the explosion illuminated Zhou Xuanji and Ren Niming's expressions. Ren Niming squinted his eyes and said, "The great Emperor Dao Court is here. This is getting more and more interesting." Zhou Xuanji looked over and saw Emperor Xia and the others. He did not recognize any of them, so he did not feel much about them. "How much do you know about the great Emperor Dao Court?" Zhao Fu asked Ren Niming. Before, he had hated the great Emperor Dao Court, but now his target was fate, and he no longer placed the great Emperor Dao Court in his eyes. Ren Niming said in a low voice, "This force is very mysterious. The things they plan are also very strange. Even I can't guess what they want." Zhou Xuanji felt that it was strange too. The great Emperor Dao Court always seemed to have a strong start, but weak finish. For example, they had given up on him before he had risen up. From what Xiandoya and Xiao Hu had said, it seemed that the great Emperor Dao Court did not place much importance on him. If it wasn't for Xiandoya's desperate request, Xiao Hu would not have acted. Within the great thousand worlds, the legends of the great Emperor Dao Court spread far and wide, and many powerful existences took pride in joining the great Emperor Dao Court. It seemed that many things had the shadow of the great Emperor Dao Court. However, if one looked closely, they would find that the great Emperor Dao Court had not obtained anything. It's very likely that there's a heavenly saint standing behind the great Emperor Dao Court, and that heavenly saint will most likely come soon. Ren Niming laughed mockingly, as if he was looking forward to the heavenly saint arrival. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. There was a heavenly saint behind the great Emperor Dao court. It seemed that he had underestimated the great Emperor Dao court's foundation. The battle between barbarian god Huang Luo, heavenly lord Xiantai, and Grandmaster Yu Xuanzong became more and more intense. The entire starry sky had been turned over to them for battle. As the heavenly sages fought, space collapsed. Space-time electricity wreaked havoc as if dragons and snakes surged into the universe. The three heavenly saints fought on their own. Barbarian god Huang Luo was the strongest. He did not rely on any treasures and fought with his physical body. Yu Xianzong's performance was rather weak. He took out over 100 treasures and displayed his abilities, but he still couldn't gain the upper hand. If this goes on, how long will it take? Zhou Xuanji asked. He had already absorbed the magic energy from the battle into his body and did not break through. Above the connecting heaven realm was the saint realm. The gap in between was like an insurmountable chasm. The so-called saint contender was just a title to prove that one was qualified to fight for the position of saint. However, there was still a huge gap between them and the heavenly saint. The heavenly saints did not dare to slaughter all living beings casually, because that would increase their negative karma, and the more negative karma they had, the more they would face. Especially the more powerful the living being, the more they could not fight personally. This was also the reason why the heavenly saint selection changed. Of course, if they angered the heavenly saint would still kill them. At this moment, Heavenly Lord Xiantai broke free suddenly and charged toward Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji reacted quickly. He used the sword fusion technique and nine soul fusion technique straight away, and a brilliant radiance radiated from his body. With the thunderclap sword in one hand, he blocked in front of Rin Niming and slashed. Sword chi swept out like a crescent moon. It was extremely majestic and was tens of thousands of miles wide. Boom! Heavenly Lord Xiantai broke through the sword chi forcefully and punched toward Zhou Xuanji. His fist turned black and extremely tough. It collided with the thunderclap sword and almost knocked Zhou Xuanji out of his hand. Next, he flew backward together with Rin Niming. You must die today. Heavenly Lord Xiantai cried out furiously. He slammed his right palm downward, and a spatial crack appeared behind him. Countless black chains dashed out and grabbed toward Zhou Xuanji. Ding, ding, ding. Zhou Xuanji's limbs were bound by the chains. In the next second, he was pulled toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai raised his fists and clasped them together. Black runes appeared around his fists, giving off an extremely horrifying aura. The surrounding space shattered immediately. He stared at Zhou Xuanji with a savage expression. Zhou Xuanji broke free from the chains with 10,000 ultimate steps and charged toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. He channeled all the energy in his body, and the three pure chi wrapped around his body. Madness could be seen in his purple eyes. Sword Dao rules. A slash tore the starry sky apart. Heavenly Lord Xuantia's fists exploded with two beams of black light that contained destructive power. Boom! Powerful black and white lights intertwined, and Zhou Xuanji and Heavenly Lord Xuantia's figures were instantly inundated. The beings in the distance were completely dumbfounded. The Sword Emperor can already fight with heavenly saints. God damn it, what are we doing here? With this kind of strength, we won't be able to pick him up even if we want to. So terrifying. How can he be so powerful? Could it be the effect of two heavenly law violet chi? Are we still going to continue watching? The beings were sent into an uproar. Their divine sense felt as if it had touched the sun and was burned, making them even more afraid. Chapter 613. As the spectators sighed in shock, Zhou Xuanji and Heavenly Lord Xiantai rushed out from within the intense light. As they fought, they rushed upwards. Zhou Xuanji swung his sword with one hand, and his sword speed reached the level of a saint. It was so fast that it created billions of sword images, which reflected off each other. Heavenly Venerate Xiantai relied on his pair of iron fists to receive the thunderclap sword head-on without suffering any injuries. Is this guy a heavenly saint or an overlord saint? Zhou Xuanji inwardly cursed and occasionally slashed out with sword Dao rules, forcing Heavenly Lord Xiantai to dodge. Dao will was an existence that surpassed the heavenly laws. Naturally, it surpassed the power of heavenly saints. However, Zhou Xuanji's sword Dao rules was only a very shallow Dao will, but it was enough to injure Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Heavenly Lord Xiantai was also shocked. What kind of divine ability is that? Why is it making my sacred heart tremble? He could not understand, but he felt that Zhou Xuanji had too many secrets and had to be killed. With that thought in mind, he increased his holy power in a frenzy, and his aura grew stronger. The two of them were like two intertwining meteors as they charged upwards. With a boom, they broke through space and arrived in the extremely dark void. Zhou Xuanji was still dazzling, while Heavenly Lord Xiantai had fused with the darkness. After entering this void, Heavenly Lord Xuantia's offensive suddenly increased. Zhou Xuanji relied on his instincts to defend. He felt that he was surrounded by hundreds of people, and the attacks came from all directions. His purple eyes suddenly lit up. He instantly caught sight of Heavenly Lord Xuantia's figure. This fellow was constantly moving about in the darkness like a ghost. He immediately used the primordial chaos sword shadow. Sword shadows covered his entire body, stacking on top of each other. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding 10,000 miles were filled with sword shadows, forcing Heavenly Lord Xiantai to stay away from him. Zhou Xuanji snorted coldly and immediately closed his eyes. The primordial chaos sword shadows shot toward Heavenly Lord Xiantai. He still remembered the advice of the old immortal, so he did not dare to use the power of his eyes. However, his eyes had already unconsciously displayed their abilities, which made him somewhat vexed. Once he was able to defeat fate, he would definitely use this pair of eyes without any scruples. He would not be afraid of the mysterious enemies outside of the heavenly Dao. Dang! Dang! Clang! Heavenly Lord Xiantai blocked all of the sword shadows with his fists. His eyes locked on his Zhou Xuanji, and his pupils turned silver. In an instant, he felt a pair of scorching eyes on him. He subconsciously wanted to dodge, but he was shocked to find that his body couldn't move. Pucci, Heavenly Lord Xuantia's right fist pierced through Zhou Xuanji's chest. Everything happened too quickly, and he opened his eyes in shock. Heavenly Lord Xiantai gave a savage smile and said, "Zhou Xuanji, you still have to die. Don't think that you're the only one with extraordinary eyes. My eyes have already cultivated into a divine ability and can control the eye of life and death. You won't be able to escape." His right arm was ablaze with black flames. The raging flames enveloped Zhou Xuanji's body. However, Zhou Xuanji did not panic. Instead, he smiled condescendingly. Saint Slayer sword suddenly appeared above his head. Whoosh! Heavenly Lord Xiantai instinctively dodged, but the Saint Slayer sword still pierced his forehead. Saint blood splattered everywhere. His eyes widened as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. The berserk saint energy flowed into Zhou Xuanji's body, almost causing him to explode and die. Under extreme pain, Zhou Xuanji burst out laughing. His eyes were cold as he looked at Heavenly Lord Xiantai furiously. "You are the first heavenly saint I've killed, and you will not be the last." The Saint Slayer sword turned around and pierced Heavenly Lord Xuantia's chest. After that, Zhou Xuanji stored it into the supreme storage. How could this be? Heavenly Lord Xuantia's body trembled. The surface of his body cracked, and a faint radiance shone from his body. It was as though he was about to explode. He could sense that his saint energy was being absorbed at an insane rate. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji had turned into a Taotai and was devouring his saint energy and will. I can't die in your hands." "Impossible!" Heavenly Lord Xiantai cried out in despair. His voice grew weaker and weaker. In the vast starry sky, barbarian god Huang Luo and Yu Xuanzong were still fighting. Both of them gave their all without holding back. Aren't you worried that Heavenly Lord Xiantai will monopolize the two Heavenly Law Violet Qi? Yu Xuanzong roared furiously. He was flustered and exasperated. Although he was questioning, he did not stop his attacks. Barbarian god Huangluo laughed wildly. He wants to defeat the Sword Emperor, but it won't be that easy. The two dragons roared. His attacks were like tidal waves that pressed forward with indomitable will. Far away, Xian Xianghua stood on an asteroid and looked up. The violent wind fluttered her demonic dress. "Brat, don't die." She frowned and was worried for Zhou Xuanji. His opponent was a heavenly saint after all. Zhou Xuanji had not become a heavenly saint yet, so how could he defeat a heavenly saint? At this moment, golden flowers floated down from above, mixed with black sand. Not only in this starry sky, but it was the same for all worlds. The golden flowers fell, and the black sand fell like rain. A heavenly lord had fallen. The spectating beings did not think of this, and all became anxious. "What's this? Be careful. It might be some kind of divine ability. Do you guys feel a heavenly might? Heavenly saints fight." "Do you think there won't be heavenly might? I feel that something is wrong." Barbarian god Huangluo and Yu Xuanzong, who were fighting, stopped at the same time. The two saints were shocked, and their eyes were filled with shock. Heavenly Lord Xiantai had fallen? How could it be? That brat is so powerful? Barbarian god Huangluo thought to himself in shock. He had to re-evaluate Zhou Xuanji. Yu Xuanzong gritted his teeth and said, "Could it be another heavenly saint?" "Another heavenly saint?" Barbarian god Huangluo frowned. He suddenly felt that this was the most likely possibility. Although Zhou Xuanji was powerful, it was impossible for him to kill a heavenly saint. Heavenly saints were indestructible and depended on the heavenly law. How could ordinary beings kill them? Far away, Rin Niming looked up in a daze with a complicated look in his eyes. Although he tried his best to nurture Zhou Xuanji and hoped that this brat could slay a heavenly saint, he did not expect him to really do it. "Zhou Xuanji, what kind of power did you use?" Rin Niming mumbled to himself. Slaying a heavenly saint required the power of the heavenly law, or a power that surpassed the heavenly law. He had lived for so long, but he had never seen a power that surpassed the heavenly saint. Soon, the spectators realized that this was the sign of a heavenly saint falling. "Heavenly Lord Xiantai has fallen? Impossible. Could it be the Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji? Heavens, he's already so powerful? No wonder he dared to come. He's fearless." These powerful cultivators cried out in shock. Xian Xianghua heard their words too. Her body trembled, and her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise and joy. This brat was always the same. He always exceeded everyone's expectations. On the great Emperor Dao court's side, Emperor Xia and the others looked up and were covered in cold sweat. They all knew that Zhou Xuanji was one of the great Emperor Dao court's targets. "Seems like we have underestimated him. Who is he?" Emperor Xia mumbled to himself with a deep frown. He knew about Zhou Xuanji's hatred toward the great Emperor Dao court. Chapter 614. While the various world were shaken by Heavenly Lord Xuantia's death, Zhou Xuanji was still in the dark void. The Heavenly Lord Xiantai in front of him turned into ashes and dissipated into thin air, leaving behind a heavenly law violet qi. Zhou Xuanji stored the heavenly law violet qi into the Tianxia map. His body was enveloped in a blinding light as the raging saint power ravaged his body. If he had not absorbed the Overlord Saint's Saint Elixir pill, his body would have exploded and he would have died. Is this the power of a heavenly saint? Just a portion of it is already so unbearable. Zhou Xuanji gritted his teeth and endured the pain. He knew he had to get through this. As long as he could get through this, he would transform again. TSK, TSK. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that a mortal could kill a saint. A mocking laughter could be heard as a ball of light appeared in front of them. A man in a white robe slowly walked over. He was tens of thousands of feet tall, and his body shone with light. 5 divine moons floated behind him, and his black hair reached his waist. His face was handsome, and a cold smile hung on his face. Another heavenly saint. Zhou Xuanji frowned. He could not fight at all. The slightest movement could cause the saint energy to go haywire and cause his body to explode. "May I know who you are?" Zhou Xuanji asked with gritted teeth. It was already very difficult for him to say these words. "Saint Juin, I've been watching you fight. Those swords of yours don't come from this heavenly Tao. Tell me, where are you from? If you can't convince me, you'll die here." The white-robed man said calmly. He was 10,000 miles away from Zhou Xuanji. This distance was already very dangerous for them. Saint Juin, just the name alone was enough to tell that it wasn't anything good. Zhou Xuanji sighed to himself. Was he really going to die here? It wasn't easy for him to kill a saint. What a pity. Seeing Zhou Xuanji's expression, Saint Juin smirked and continued to walk towards Zhou Xuanji. "Your talent is very strong, so strong that even heavenly saints are terrified. I have lived for countless years, but I have never seen someone like you. Perhaps you came from the end of the void. For the sake of the world, you must die." Saint Juin walked as he spoke, wanting to use words to destroy Zhou Xuanji's Tao heart. Zhou Xuanji did not bother to argue. If he still had the strength to fight, how could he allow this fellow to be noisy here? If you want to kill him, you'll have to ask me first." A light laugh came. Just as he spoke, the old immortal suddenly landed in front of Zhou Xuanji. Looking at his back, Zhou Xuanji was stunned. "Why are you here?" Zhou Xuanji asked in shock. Although the old immortal had a powerful background, his current power could not rival a heavenly saint. Hearing that, the old immortal replied without turning his head, "Since you've come this far, I naturally have to add fuel to the fire." When Saint Juin saw him, he narrowed his eyes and said, "It's you again. If it weren't for the kindness you showed to the heavenly Tao, how could you have lived until today? I advise you to get out of the way. Otherwise, I'll definitely kill you." It was no secret that there were other worlds at the end of the void. The other heavenly saints naturally knew that venerable Dao Jing had abandoned his position and left. The old immortal's face was calm. He waved his horsetail whisk and said, "If that's the case, then let's see who's the real deal." His Taoist robe fluttered even though there was no wind, and a surging aura erupted. It was vast and boundless, like the ocean of the universe, surging with great momentum. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide. This aura so powerful. He was even more powerful than Heavenly Lord Xiantai. Saint Juin was also shocked, and his expression became grim as he said, "Do you really not want to live anymore?" The old immortal calmly laughed. "What's there to fear about death? I knew that my fate was coming to an end. Rather than sitting here and dying, it's better to leave behind something." He waved his left hand behind him, and an orb of light flowed into Zhou Xuanji's mind. Zhou Xuanji's body trembled, and the pain in his body quickly disappeared. The old immortal was helping him suppress the berserk saint energy. "What are you doing?" Zhou Xuanji seemed to realize something and asked anxiously. Even though he did not want to die, he did not want to live like a coward. The old immortal stroked his beard and loudly laughed. "Don't worry. How could I die so easily? I still want to go back. How could I die here?" After saying this, he walked forwards towards Saint Juin. "Tao!" he loudly shouted, and his aura once again exploded out. Intense light shined out, illuminating the dark void. Saint Juin immediately acted, slapping his right hand towards the old immortal. Countless black phoenixes flew out from his sleeves, crying as they leapt over, giving off massive sounds. "Break!" The old immortal shouted again, and all the black phoenixes disappeared instantly, like a broken dream. Saint Juin frowned. He raised his right hand, and a long staff appeared in his hand. It was made of charred wood, and there was a blood-colored flag on it. He waved it at the old immortal. Gusts of chilly wind swept over, and the dark void produced visible ripples. "Destroy!" The old immortal's expression did not change. With another shout, he extinguished the sinister wind. He was getting closer and closer to Saint Juin. At this moment, barbarian god Huang Luo and Yu Xianzong appeared on both sides. When they saw the old immortal, they were all moved. Why is he here? Yu Xuanzong's expression was unsightly, and he looked at Zhou Xuanji with his eyes wide open. This kid absorbed Heavenly Lord Xuantie's sane energy? Senior, what are you doing here? Could it be that you want to interfere with the heavenly Tao? Barbarian god Huangluo's eyes narrowed as he asked, and his tone contained a hint of deterrence. Facing the encirclement of the three saints, the old immortal was calm. Let him go, and I won't attack again. He spoke softly, his voice clearly entering the ears of the three saints. Yu Xuanzong raged. If we let him go, will he let us go? They all knew that Zhou Xuanji was someone who would take revenge for the smallest grievance. How could today's enmity be resolved with just words? The old immortal shook his head and said, as a heavenly saint, don't be too greedy. The three saints still did not back down and glared at him. Seeing this, the old immortal could only sigh. Since it's like this, I'll let you experience the great Tao's will. The old immortal's expression became serious, and his body gave off a resplendent white light. Zhou Xuanji instinctively closed his eyes. The three saints' expressions greatly fell. Xian Xianghua stood on the meteor, feeling quite unsettled. She kept feeling that Zhou Xuanji was in danger. After all, barbarian god Huang Luo and Yu Xuanzong had disappeared. However, she did not know where Zhou Xuanji was, so she could only worry here. Ren Niming flew over and looked at Xian Xianghua as he asked, "What's your relationship with Zhou Xuanji? Your eyes are exactly the same." Xian Xianghua had seen him standing with Zhou Xuanji before, but she remained wary and said calmly, "The same color means the same in essence?" Ren Niming shook his head and laughed. He raised his right hand and flipped open his palm, and a yellow jade appeared in his hand. "I'll give his treasure to you. You can contact Zhou Xuanji. Of course, that will be after this battle." After tossing the yellow jade to Xian Xianghua, Ren Niming turned and left, quickly disappearing into the depths of the starry sky. Xian Xianghua looked at the yellow jade in her hand, and the corners of her lips slightly rose under her veil. She directly crushed the yellow jade. "Do I need something from you to contact him?" Chapter 615. Within the powerful light. Zhou Xuanji could not see or hear anything. He felt that all his senses had lost their function. He could only try his best to integrate the saint energy in his body. With the old immortal around, he was not afraid at all. As the pain disappeared, he felt that his saint energy was growing rapidly. It had already surpassed the power of saint contenders. At this rate, he could forcefully prove his Tao and become an overlord saint. What will happen to him? Zhou Xuanji thought worriedly. He did not want anything to happen to the old immortal because of him. Sometime later, after his saint energy stabilized, his senses had not recovered, and he still could not open his eyes. He could feel that his basic power had increased by more than 100 times. Somehow, he felt that he had reached the bottleneck of a certain stage. He understood that it was the saint stage. If he could kill another heavenly saint, he would surely become a saint. He could already move, but he could not sense his surroundings. So, he did not dare to move and waited patiently. Sometime later, the powerful light around him dissipated gradually. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. The warmth felt familiar to him. "Senior," he called out softly, "follow me." The old immortal's feeble voice came into his ears. Next, he was taken away. Instantly, he could open his eyes. He realized that he was traveling swiftly in the universe. The stars along the way were like reflections of him. The old immortal was right beside him. He put his right hand on Zhou Xuanji's shoulder and looked ahead. "Where are we going?" Zhou Xuanji asked. Seeing that the old immortal looked normal, he heaved a sigh of relief. "I will bring you to a place and show you the way to Kunlun Origin Court," the old immortal replied. His eyes were as calm as still water. Zhou Xuanji frowned and had a bad feeling. "What happened to you?" he asked with gritted teeth. He could go to that place at any time. Why now? Although he had become more powerful, he was still far from being able to go to Kunlun Origin Court. Not to mention Kunlun Origin Court, he might not even be able to defeat the mysterious enemies waiting outside. Don't worry. Although I have exhausted my lifespan, I am not really dead. I have already sent my essence into your body. After you enter Kunlun Origin Court, my essence will tell you how to revive me. The old immortal said with a smile. He was as calm as ever, as though he did not care about life or death. Zhou Xuanji wanted to say something, but stopped. His heart grew heavy. The old immortal comforted him. The three saints have already been heavily injured by me, so they won't cause you any trouble in the short term. After I take you to that place, you can go back and deal with them one by one. Continue to grow stronger, and I hope you can pass on the heavenly law of violet energy to creatures that are truly suitable for the heavenly saints. If this heavenly Tao is allowed to continue messing around, it will definitely be destroyed. Zhou Xuanji listened quietly and felt terrible. All the times he spent with the old immortal appeared in his mind, and he felt suffocated. The old immortal smiled and said, "Don't think too much. I can't be immortal in the first place." Back then, the heaven-mending Tao had already damaged the source of my soul. I just made a choice in advance. Don't forget what I said. Your heart must be calm. At this point, Zhou Xuanji could only try to calm himself down. He said solemnly, "Don't worry, I won't let you down." The old immortal smiled even more and began to talk about the beauty of the Kunlun Origin Court. However, his description was already very vague. Other than adjectives, he couldn't give a concrete answer. Zhou Xuanji could clearly sense that his mind was aging. In the end, he didn't even have the strength to speak. His entire face became haggard. He was no longer the one carrying Zhou Xuanji, but Zhou Xuanji was carrying him. They flew for an unknown period of time. The old immortal said weakly, "Remember this direction. Keep moving forward." Right after he spoke, he turned into ashes and disappeared into the starry sky. Zhou Xuanji stopped and remained silent. After a long while, he sighed and smiled. "Very good. This way, my heart will be more resolute." He snorted coldly. He was no longer sad. The old immortal could come back to life anyway. Next, it was time for him to take revenge on the heavenly saints. The thunderclap sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword appeared in his hands. With both swords in hand, he turned around and flew toward the great thousand worlds. The news of Heavenly Lord Xiantai being killed by the Sword Emperor spread across the great thousand worlds and to other independent worlds. Many powerful cultivators witnessed this battle. To prevent their disciples from offending Zhou Xuanji, they spread this news on purpose. At the same time, they wanted to express their goodwill to Zhou Xuanji. If they were in Zhou Xuanji's shoes, they would want the whole world to know about it. Soon, the Sword Emperor's name was worshipped by the world. Killing a saint. Since ancient times, who could do it other than the heavenly saint? Zhou Xuanji proved that the heavenly saint was not invincible. At the same time, everyone knew something else. That was, Zhou Xuanji had 3 heavenly law of violet qi. In a lotus world, Zhou Shaoxian was training her sword on the mountaintop. Not far away, Jiang Shui was cultivating under a tree. Lady Zhao Xian was beside her. In front of them was a majestic waterfall. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji appeared before Jiang Shui. Jiang Shui opened her eyes and saw that Zhou Xuanji, who had his back to the sun, looked so tall. "Why did you come back so suddenly? Did something happen?" Jiang Shui got up and asked immediately. Lady Zhao Xian got up as well. Zhou Shaoxian, who was training her sword, was alarmed. Seeing that it was Zhou Xuanji, she leaped over in surprise and smiled. "Father, is Su Qing really your senior apprentice brother?" Zhou Xuanji smiled at her before looking at Jiang Shui and said, "I'm fine. I just fought with the heavenly saint and suddenly missed you." "Heavenly saint?" The 3 girls were shocked. "Are you okay?" Lady Zhao Xian asked anxiously. In their eyes, the heavenly saints were invincible beings. Could it be that Zhou Xuanji was held hostage and came here to explain himself to them? The more they thought about it, the more afraid they became. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "I'm fine. I killed Heavenly Lord Xiantai." With these words, the three girls opened their eyes wide. Zhou Shaoxian grabbed his arm and said excitedly, "Father, is what you said true? You are already a heavenly saint." At this moment, she felt like she was dreaming. Her father would be a heavenly saint in the future? Just thinking about it was exciting. Zhou Xuanji rubbed her head and said with a smile, "I'm not a heavenly saint, but I can kill him. Next, I will kill the other heavenly saints. I just want to ask you, if I leave the heavenly law universe and head into the depths of the void, are you all willing to follow me?" Jiang Shui pinched his waist and snorted. "What? You want to leave us behind?" Zhou Shaoxian followed and said that she was willing to continue exploring with him. Lady Zhao Xian was a little dazed. To her, only a few years had passed. In the blink of an eye, the child who was crying in her arms had become the most powerful being under the heavenly law. Chapter 6:16. When I defeat the enemies under the heavenly Tao, I will leave. At that time, I will bring all of you along and let you experience the scenery outside the heavenly Tao. Zhou Xuanji stroked Jiang Shui's hair and smiled gently. He turned to Lady Zhao Xian and asked, "Mother, what about you? Do you want to stay?" Ever since he had come to the world in the lotus, he had often seen Lady Zhao Xian staring blankly into space by herself. Lady Zhao Xian looked hesitant, unable to make a decision immediately. "I'm just telling you guys in advance. You guys can still think about it. All right, it's time for me to leave," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. After that, he disappeared. Then, he went to the universe and kept demon god Tianwu into the Tianxia map. The 24-rank deep black lotus also merged with his body. He quickly flew toward the boundless world. Barbarian god Huangluo, Yu Xianzong, and Saint Juyin were all heavily injured by the old immortal, so it was the best time for him to strike. He held 2-9 extreme divine swords in his hands. With the support of divine power, his divine consciousness became stronger. He scanned the area with his spiritual will and quickly captured the auras of the three sages. Among all the living beings, the heavenly saint's aura was extremely vast. Aside from the three barbarian sages, there were also the auras of other heavenly sages. Zhou Xuanji first flew toward where Grandmaster Yu Xuan was, within an independent universe. Yu Xuanzong sat on a golden lotus as tens of world overlords floated before him, waiting for his instructions. Xian Xianghua was also among them. She was silent. After a long while, Yu Xuanzong opened his eyes and looked at everyone as he slowly said, "Everyone should know that Heavenly Lord Xiantai was killed by Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji had a backer, and after being suppressed by us three saints, that backer has fallen. Now, Zhou Xuanji has 3 heavenly law violet chi. You should know what to do." The sector lords were indifferent and did not reply. If it was before, they might have simply believed it. However, after witnessing the holy war, they no longer dared to have such delusions. Regardless of whether Zhou Xuanji had killed Heavenly Lord Xiantai or not, they had seen with their own eyes that Zhou Xuanji had strength that could rival saints. Yu Xianzong saw through their thoughts and sneered. "What? Are you scared?" The sector lords didn't dare to meet his gaze and could only curse in their hearts. "There's no need to force them. I'm already here." Zhou Xuanji's voice suddenly sounded out in the universe, causing everyone's expression to change. A spatial crack appeared above Yu Xuanzong's head, and Zhou Xuanji, holding the thunderclap sword and 3 clear Tai Chi sword, walked out. Whoosh! The world overlords were so frightened that they hurriedly retreated. Xian Xianghua was the same as well. She was deeply immersed in her acting. Zhou Xuanji looked down at Yu Xuanzong and said coldly, "You're about to follow in Heavenly Lord Xuantia's footsteps. If you have any last words, say them quickly, or you won't have the chance." Yu Xuanzong was so angry that he laughed. He stood up and said coldly, "Zhou Xuanji, you're too." Boom! Zhou Xuanji's body gave off a resplendent and powerful light. He directly used the sword fusion technique and 9-soul fusion technique. The 2-9 extreme legendary sword's power was activated, and his aura was comparable to a heavenly saint's. Yu Xuanzong's expression changed as he exclaimed, "How long has it been? How can you be so strong?" Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and slashed down. Sword Dao rules. Yu Xuanzong subconsciously retreated, but his right arm was still chopped off. Yu Xuanzong was so scared that his scalp felt numb. How could a sword be so fast? He looked at Zhou Xuanji in shock, and he could not help but wonder if Zhou Xuanji had been possessed by the old immortal. The other world overlords were even more shocked. Why did they feel that Yu Xuanzong was not a match for Zhou Xuanji at all? How long had it been since that battle? Do you remember that legend? You're talking about the Overlord Saint, who's even more powerful than heavenly saints. Using strength to prove one's Tao? If he's a heavenly saint, then it makes sense. He's too powerful. We need to run. That's right. Staying alive is more important. The world overlords were so scared that they all tore through space and quickly escaped. Xian Xianghua also left. She did not want to reveal their relationship for now. At the same time, she believed that Zhou Xuanji could kill Yu Xuanzong. After the world overlords left, Zhou Xuanji immediately started to take revenge. He raised the thunderclap sword and said coldly, "Yu Xuanzong, you provoke me first. You're a heavenly saint, but just for heavenly law violet chi, you're not worthy of being a heavenly saint." His aura madly increased, causing spatial ripples that could be seen with the naked eye to appear. After the golden flowers and iron sand, the entire world was covered in a golden light, and countless hailstones fell. Everyone was in an uproar. Such an abnormal scene that contained heavenly might. Could another heavenly saint have fallen? I, Zhou Xuanji, have already killed Heavenly Lord Xiantai and Yu Xuanzong, and I have 4 heavenly law violet chi. Everyone, listen up. If you want to become a heavenly saint, I will give you a chance. The heavenly saint should not only have power, but also benevolence and fairness. If you want to become a heavenly saint, follow your heart. Zhou Xuanji's voice suddenly resounded throughout all the great 1,000 worlds and independent worlds. His words caused everyone to be in an uproar. The Sword Emperor was going to choose a heavenly saint? That was too domineering. The top-tier cultivators were somewhat furious, but most of the living beings were excited. If the heavenly saint was benevolent and fair, all living beings would be blessed. At this moment, all the worlds were worshipping the Sword Emperor. Wancheng Great Thousand, Center God Province. Within the Heavenly Palace, Emperor Yin of Zhou stood guard before the Heavenly Gate. After hearing Zhou Xuanji's words, he fell into a daze. The other heavenly soldiers discussed excitedly. The Sword Emperor is so powerful. I heard that the Sword Emperor once had a conflict with our Heavenly Palace, but he was benevolent and did not pursue it. I heard about it too. I heard that his father is still in our Heavenly Palace. This is his era. All geniuses are insignificant before him. He's already a heavenly saint? That's amazing. Emperor Yin of Zhou smiled bitterly. If he had been braver back then and protected Zhou Xuanji with his life, would his fate have changed? In just a few hundred years, Zhou Xuanji had already reached an unimaginable level. Was this boy really his son? The more Emperor Yin of Zhou thought about it, the more bitter he felt. His expression became desolate. It was as though he had aged a decade. In a shattered universe, darkness occupied most of the space. Countless ashes floated in the air. They were formed by the shattered stars. Zhou Xuanji sat in the air and digested Yu Xuanzong's saint energy. He began to break through to the saint realm. Overlord Saint, I'm coming. Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He did not deactivate the 9-soul fusion technique to strengthen the 4 demon god bodies, because Yu Xuanzong's saint energy was more than enough for him to break through. More energy could be used to strengthen his demon god clones. If his clones could break through to the Overlord Saint, wouldn't that be perfect? Thunderclouds appeared above his head suddenly. They billowed and expanded, and bolts of purple lightning could be vaguely seen in the clouds. Saint Tribulation. Zhou Xuanji looked up and saw a pair of eyes in the thunderclouds. It was the Heavenly Law's eye. The Heavenly Law was spying on him. He did not panic, but was filled with fighting spirit. Chapter 617. The heavenly Tao had no consciousness. It was just a law that ruled over everything. That pair of heavenly Tao eyes was just a manifestation of the heavenly tribulation to frighten his Tao heart. Soon, the heavenly tribulation descended. Billions of bolts of purple lightning descended and violently struck Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji directly used World Overlord's heart technique, drawing on the power of heavenly law to suppress the surging saint energy in his body. He looked young, and his cultivation breakthrough seemed to be too hasty, but his foundation was not unstable. As his cultivation level soared, his body was constantly being tempered. Moreover, his state of mind had already comprehended the edge of the great Tao, and everything that was happening before his eyes was a matter of course for him. The process of transcending the tribulation was extremely long. Zhou Xuanji did not hide his aura. He was not afraid of heavenly saints attacking. He even hoped that a heavenly saint would come. About 2 hours passed. He sensed two presences. They belonged to barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin. As expected, berserker god Huang Luo does not harbor any good intentions. As Zhou Xuanji thought about this, the corner of his lips curled up. Just in time. It was just the right time to help him reach a higher level. Soon, barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin appeared. They appeared on Zhou Xuanji's left and right, 10,000 meters away from him. Looking at Zhou Xuanji from afar, their gazes were incredibly complicated. They could not maintain their composure as heavenly saints. Zhou Xuanji did not speak and waited for them to attack. After a while, barbarian god Huang Luo said, "Zhou Xuanji, what do you want? Since you want to become an overlord saint, why don't you give up the 4 heavenly law violet chi?" Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and asked, "Since you are already a heavenly saint, why do you still need the heavenly law violet chi?" What a joke. Why can you snatch it, but I can't take it? Moreover, he had obtained the 4 heavenly law violet chi in a fair and just manner. So how could he possibly give them away? There are too many heavenly saints. We want to destroy these 4 strands of heavenly law violet energy. They're divided by us, and we control the heavenly law together. What do you think? Barbarian god Huang Luo continued with a calm expression, as though he could not see that Zhou Xuanji was undergoing the tribulation. Saint Juin smiled faintly, but didn't say anything. For some reason, they did not give Zhou Xuanji the feeling that they were heavenly saints. Instead, they were demons who fought for power and profit. Was this the magnanimity of a heavenly saint? Zhou Xuanji's eyes were filled with disdain. A ray of golden light shone down from above and landed right in front of Zhou Xuanji. A figure emerged from within the golden light. It was Buddha Yangling Amitabha. "Brother Zhou and I are old friends. I advise you to leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Buddha Yangling's left hand formed a palm, and he placed it in front of his chest. His right hand was fiddling with the prayer beads. Barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin narrowed their eyes. What crafty old bald donkey. He actually jumped out to show off. "Yangling, did you really think that he would join hand with you just like that? You're the main culprit behind old ancestor Hongshi's death," said Saint Juin with a strange smile. The moment he said that, Buddha Yangling's right hand stopped, and his expression became slightly unnatural. However, Zhou Xuanji's expression did not change. He remained silent and focused on overcoming the tribulation. According to his estimations, he would soon become an overlord saint. Buddha Yangling stared at Saint Juin and said, "Our battles have already placed the heavenly Taos in a dangerous state. Why did Paragon Daojing leave? Do you think it's because he wants to pursue greater power? He's on the run." The reason why he came up with a plan to clear out the saints was not just for the sake of power. If he was the only heavenly saint, he would be able to help all creatures as he pleased and uphold the rules. The 3 heavenly saints started to bicker, wanting to stand at the peak of morality. Zhou Xuanji silently listened. The eye of heavenly law gradually disappeared into the thunderclouds. He could sense that his body and soul were going through changes. Analyzed that the sword owner has reached the Overlord Saint realm. Gotcha started. Ding! Congratulations! The sword owner has obtained the 9 Extreme 1000 Reincarnation Sword. Extreme Nightmare Abyss. The sword spirit's voice sounded out in Zhou Xuanji's mind, causing him to slightly frown. Why was it only a 9 Extreme Legendary Sword? He thought about it, and could not help but shake his head and laugh. He had been too greedy. Following this, his entire body started to ascend. Barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin's expressions slightly changed, but they still did not attack Zhou Xuanji. Now that things had come to this, they understood that they could not stop Zhou Xuanji. As such, it was better to bury the hatchet. Buddha Yangling's gaze was somewhat complicated. This was because Zhou Xuanji's growth speed was simply too fast. Last time, the two of them had made an agreement in the Heaven Fiend realm. How long had it been? Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed him. He even suspected that he had been struck by some sort of illusory divine ability. This dream was simply too bizarre. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and looked at barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin as he said coldly, "You're still here. Looks like you're not afraid of death?" Saint Juin smiled as he said, "We're not forcing you. We've already lost 4 heavenly saints, and we cannot continue to lose them. You becoming an Overlord Saint is a good thing for us. You could do whatever you want with the heavenly law of Violet Chi. However, there's a very powerful enemy outside, the heavenly law. Before, even the 8 of us saints working together were not a match for him. An enemy outside, the heavenly law?" Zhou Xuanji immediately thought of the primordial ancestor's enemy. That sort of existence was indeed something that heavenly saints could not defeat. Ever since we started cultivating, who hasn't had enmity or grievances? We didn't have any great enmity before, and you've already reached the saint realm, so you're in existence on the same level as us. As a saint of the heavenly law, we naturally have to fight together, barbarian god Huang Luo said, a calm smile on his face, not worried at all that Zhou Xuanji would suddenly attack. Zhou Xuanji took out the thunderclap sword and smiled as he said, "Each of you receive a sword strike from me as an apology. One of my seniors died because of you. No matter if it's life or death, our enmity will be written off." His smile was incredibly dangerous, making it so that barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin could no longer smile. Buddha Yongling sighed softly. This boy was truly someone who would take revenge for the smallest grievance. Fortunately, he had not offended him back then. He was quite curious to see if barbarian god Huang Luo and Saint Juin would be able to receive a sword strike from Zhou Xuanji. Since it's like this, how can we refuse? Come! Barbarian god Huang Luo loudly laughed as 2 azure dragons wrapped around his majestic body. He raised his aura to the peak. Saint Juin's expression was gloomy, and he could only nod. He was on guard, preparing to face Zhou Xuanji's sword. At that moment, Zhou Xuanji suddenly moved, turning and rushing towards Saint Juin. He slashed out, and sword Dao rules exploded out. Saint Juin raised his arms to block. Boom! Sword light flashed as sword chi swept out. Saint Juin instantly exploded, and his soul dissipated. Only a trace of heavenly law Violet Chi remained, struggling at death's door. Sword Chi swept out, tearing apart the universe's space. Barbarian god Huang Luo and Buddha Yongling stared with wide eyes. How was this possible? The 2 saints were dumbfounded, especially barbarian god Huang Luo. His body trembled, and an unprecedented sense of fear flooded into his heart, making it impossible for him to remain calm. That was Saint Juin. Even among heavenly saints, he was an existence with above-average strength. And yet, he had been instantly killed by Zhou Xuanji with a single strike. Impossible. He just broke through. Barbarian god Huang Luo's body trembled, feeling despair in his heart. He could not believe his eyes. I have countless swords. Chapter 618. After killing Saint Juin, Zhou Xuanji once again absorbed a boundless wave of saint energy. He suppressed the saint energy within his body while also collecting Saint Juin's heavenly law violet qi. At this point, he had 5 strands of heavenly Tao violet qi in hand, which was enough to change the heavenly Tao. He shifted his gaze towards barbarian god Huang Luo and said with a smile, "Are you ready?" Barbarian god Huang Luo was drenched in cold sweat. He did not know how to reply. Seeing his expression, Zhou Xuanji felt incredibly pleased. "Weren't you all high and mighty before? If you kill us, how will you face the powerful enemies from beyond the heavens?" Barbarian god Huang Luo took a deep breath and tried to calm his emotions. The impact of that sword strike just now was too great. His limbs were trembling slightly. He was a heavenly saint. How could he be so unbearable? The longer you live, the more you don't want to die. That was how barbarian god Huang Luo felt at the moment. Buddha Yangling hovered in the distance. He didn't interrupt and just watched quietly. Looking at Zhou Xuanji, he remembered the mighty figure of the previous overlord saint. An overlord saint is a true saint. A heavenly saint is just a puppet that borrows the power of the heavenly law. Buddha Yangling smiled bitterly with a desolate expression. He suddenly understood that even if he was the only heavenly saint left, he would not be a match for Zhou Xuanji with the power of heavenly law. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji did not speak, barbarian god Huang Luo became even more terrified. He did not even dare to run away, because Zhou Xuanji's sword was just too fast. Saint Juin didn't even have time to defend himself. If he had turned around, he would have died without a doubt. Zhou Xuanji divided the saint energy among the 4 demon god clones, causing them to come closer and closer to the overlord saint. This broken universe fell into silence. Buddha Yangling did not dare to make a sound, causing barbarian god Huang Luo to be tormented. He did not know when Zhou Xuanji would attack. Even as a heavenly saint, he could not endure this kind of fear. He gritted his teeth and knelt down in the air. He cupped his fist toward Zhou Xuanji and said, "I'm willing to submit to you and serve you. Can you spare my life?" Buddha Yangling's eyes widened as he looked at him in disbelief. The arrogant barbarian god Huang Luo actually knelt down? Zhou Xuanji looked at him and asked expressionlessly, "How can I trust you?" Barbarian god Huang Luo deeply breathed in and flipped his right hand. A golden bell appeared in his hand, and he sent it to Zhou Xuanji with his saint energy. This treasure is known as the 9 extreme bell of heaven and earth. It is an ultimate treasure of the heavenly Tao. With a single ring, the souls of all living beings will be captivated. With 2 rings, the heavenly saint will be in a trance. With 3 rings, it can destroy billions of souls. Barbarian god Huang Luo said with a complicated tone. This was his strongest magic treasure. Buddha Yangling followed and said, "What he said is true." Zhou Xuanji found that this fellow had already erased the worldly 9 extreme bell's soul imprint. This bell was now ownerless. Barbarian god Huang Luo was very sincere. Facing the threat of death, he could only compromise. "Yes, from now on, you'll be my sword slave. What do you think?" Zhou Xuanji said calmly. Barbarian god Huang Luo's eyelids twitched, but he did not dare to refuse. And now, Zhou Xuanji had subdued a heavenly saint sword slave. Buddha Yangling was essentially one of his subordinates. Even though he hadn't officially said it, judging from Buddha Yangling's actions, it was clear that he had already made his choice. Apart from them, there were only 2 heavenly saints that he had not seen before. One was Sheng Tiandao, the strongest heavenly saint. The other was Phoenix Lord Tianqi, an extremely low-key heavenly saint. It was not an exaggeration to say that Zhou Xuanji had reached the peak of the heavenly law. Even Sheng Tiandao was not someone he placed in his eyes. However, he did not relax. His target was destiny. After a while, Zhou Xuanji completely absorbed Saint Juin's cultivation. He slowly got up and said, "Do heavenly saints live above the 36th heaven?" Buddha Yangling shook his head and said, "The 36th heaven you speak of is where the heavenly law is." Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji became even more curious. He suddenly thought of Sovereign Xian. That fellow was not even a heavenly saint. How could he dare to go to the 36th heaven? Do you know Sovereign Xian? Zhou Xuanji asked. Under the sword fusion technique, Sovereign Xian could communicate with him. Oi, 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 don't expose me. Sovereign Xian called out discontentedly, feeling quite flustered and exasperated. Dao Lord Xiantan laughed mockingly and said, Little brother, why are you so nervous? The words they used were all learned from Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji often said some strange words, and they felt that they were interesting, so they often used them. Sovereign Xian? That fellow is an incredible existence, the one closest to an overlord saint. He lives in seclusion in the Wanshan Great Thousand. Before, he sought death and went to the 36th heaven, but he never came back. He's most likely dead, Buddha Yongling said as he shook his head and smiled. His tone was filled with mockery, and hearing this, Sovereign Xian almost exploded in anger. Barbarian god Huang Luo flew over to Zhou Xuanji and said, Master, why don't you open up a preaching site in the 35th heaven? His attitude changed very quickly. Now that he was following Zhou Xuanji, he would not have to fear Sheng Tiandao anymore. Buddha Yongling had not left yet. He definitely had the same thought. Zhou Xuanji lightly nodded and followed the two heavenly saints to the 35th heaven. The 33rd heaven was the peak of the Great Thousand World, and the 34th heaven was the boundless starry sky of the universe. The 35th heaven was an even higher realm, and very few creatures could reach there. Before, when Zhou Xuanji had fought with Heavenly Lord Xiantai, he had broken through the barrier of the 35th heaven. On a massive floating island, figures stood in front of a tall mountain. Among them were Mo Jiuqing and Emperor Xia. It was the great Emperor Dao court. They all looked up, looking at a figure on the summit. Zhou Xuanji has already become an overlord saint and killed Heavenly Lord Xiantai, Yuxuanzong, and Saint Juin. Even barbarian god Huang Luo and Buddha Yongling have submitted to him. A cold voice sounded out from the summit, causing the expressions of the great Emperor Dao court's experts to change. Mo Jiuqing was the most emotional. His body trembled as he said with a trembling voice, How did he do it? Thinking back to the first time he had seen Zhou Xuanji, what was that boy's cultivation back then? And now, Emperor Xia was also given a big fright. He had personally witnessed the Saint War before. Even though Zhou Xuanji had been powerful back then, he had not been this powerful. In other words, Zhou Xuanji had already surpassed all heavenly saints. Thinking back to the enmity between the great Emperor Dao court and Zhou Xuanji, everyone felt terrified. From now on, this seat can only ally with Sheng Tiandao. In the future, don't try to divine Zhou Xuanji, including everyone around him. The cold voice once again sounded out. He was Phoenix Lord Tianqi. He was the one who had created the great Emperor Dao court. Everyone was still in shock and terror, and they could not come back to their senses for a long time. At that moment, Phoenix Lord Tianqi's figure suddenly disappeared. Emperor Xia looked at Mo Jiuqing and sighed as he said, Your troubles have come. Back then, Mo Jiuqing had plotted against Zhou Xuanji. Mo Jiuqing's expression was complicated, and he did not know what to say. In the past, he had been very close to Zhou Xuanji. In the end, he had betrayed Zhou Xuanji and led all of his fellow apprentices into danger. Now he could only hide in the great Emperor Dao court and did not dare to go out. Chapter 619. While Mo Jiuqing and Emperor Xia were feeling complicated, barbarian god Huang Luo and Buddha Yongling led Zhou Xuanji to the 35th heaven. There was no earth here, only a majestic mist of spiritual qi. As far as the eye could see, there weren't even any stars. The 35th layer of heaven is very vast. You can establish a Dao field as you wish. Barbarian god Huang Luo said in a respectful tone. He had already adjusted his state of mind. Zhou Xuanji asked, Where are Sheng Tiandao and Phoenix Lord Tianan? He remembered a heavenly saint who called himself the Heavenly Ancestor and invited him to participate in the All Heavens Dao Feast. Sheng Tiandao and Phoenix Lord Tianqi both had the word Tian in their names. Sheng Tian Dao is probably cultivating in seclusion. As for immortal Lord Tian Ho, his whereabouts are a mystery. He has a special mystique that conceals his aura. No one knows what he's doing. At the mention of Sheng Tian Dao, a strange look flashed across his eyes. Clearly, there was a story between the two saints. Zhou Xuanji asked no more and began scanning the 35 heavens with his divine will. Soon, he discovered Heavenly Lord Xiantai, Grandmaster Yu Xian, and Saint Juin's Dao arenas. He immediately flew over. Heavenly Lord Xuantie's dojo had already been ransacked. As for who had done it, he did not ask. It had to be the remaining heavenly saints. He quickly went to Grandmaster Yu Xian and Saint Juin's dojo and collected all of the resources there. Yu Xian's sex dojo was a group of palaces. They were luxurious and majestic, flickering with 7-colored holy light. Saint Juin's preaching site was a jet-black temple that was incredibly large. There were many ghosts standing guard, but they were all scattered by Zhou Xuanji's sword chi. Barbarian God Huang Luo and Buddha Yangling felt a wave of envy when they saw him plundering, but they didn't dare say anything. After doing all this, Zhou Xuanji smiled satisfactorily and said, "All right, you can all go back. Remember, reduce fighting in the future and prioritize all living beings." Barbarian God Huang Luo and Buddha Yangling immediately bowed and left. Following beside Zhou Xuanji, the pressure was just too great. They were afraid that Zhou Xuanji would suddenly attack and take their lives. After they left, Zhou Xuanji sat cross-legged in the air and began to cultivate. The previous battle had almost depleted the magic power stored in the Tianxia map. He had to store it for a period of time so that he could be prepared. He took out the 4 demon god avatars and let them cultivate together. After breaking through to the Overlord Saint realm, his control over his clones had become much stronger. Very soon, he would be able to channel the spiritual energy absorbed by the 4 clones into the Tianxia map. This would greatly increase the efficiency of his absorption of spiritual energy. After stabilizing his cultivation state, he took out the Kiliakosm Samsara sword to check. Sword name, Boundless Reincarnation Sword, Level 9 description. The Sword of Reincarnation can make all creatures under the Saint Realm fall into reincarnation. It can also break reincarnation. The user must be at the Saint Realm Level 1 to use this sword. The Kiliakosm Reincarnation Sword was a black and white longsword. It had a metallic texture and was extremely heavy, as though it had been compressed from a great thousand world. Zhou Xuanji just happened to meet the requirement of level 1 of the Saint stage. The Sage Realm was divided into 9 skies. 1 was the weakest, and 9 was the strongest. Zhou Xuanji walked the path of an Overlord Saint. Even though he was only a level 1 Heavenly Saint, he was stronger than a level 5 Heavenly Saint. An Overlord Saint was on a completely different level from a Heavenly Saint. It could even be said that without the power of the heavenly law, a heavenly saint was a false saint. After looking at the Kiliakosm Samsara sword, Zhou Xuanji started to receive the Extreme Nightmare Abyss. The Extreme Nightmare Abyss was a type of dream divine ability. It could pull an enemy's consciousness into an illusion that one could create. In the illusion, one could give the enemy pain and even kill the enemy. Time in the Extreme Nightmare Abyss was almost completely still. No matter how much time passed inside, it would only be an instant in the real world. There were 2 ways to use the Extreme Nightmare Abyss. One was to physically or spiritually touch the enemy, and the other was to look at them from a distance. Zhou Xuanji was very satisfied with this divine ability. In battle, it would definitely be impossible to defend against. After learning the Extreme Nightmare Abyss, he began to focus on cultivating. At the same time, Barbarian God Huang Luo and Buddha Yangling spread the news of Saint Juin being killed by Zhou Xuanji to the various great thousand worlds, building up support for Zhou Xuanji. In an instant, all sorts of legends about the Overlord Saint were dug up and spread throughout the various worlds. Zhou Xuanji had become the most powerful sword emperor in the heavenly law. In everyone's eyes, he was already the most powerful saint. Heavenly Lord Xiantai, Yu Xuanzong, Saint Juin. He slew 3 heavenly saints consecutively and had 5 heavenly law of violet chi. Since ancient times, who could be as domineering as him? And just like that, Zhou Xuanji was deified. The title of Sword Emperor was deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. The great emperor steels in the various Great Thousand Worlds also underwent changes. Zhou Xuanji became the first. No one had any objections to this. Compared to him, the other names on the steels paled in comparison. After half a year of rest, Zhou Xuanji left the 4 demon god bodies in the 35th heaven to cultivate while he returned to Wanshan Great Thousand and released the divine cliff. As for Emperor Sword Court, he asked around. If anyone wanted to survive in the Great Thousand Worlds, he could release them. Because Emperor Sword Court had many people, some disciples wanted to go out and have a look. So, Zhou Xuanji released them to train outside. After all this, he returned to the world in the lotus and expanded the world with his saint energy. The sky became higher and higher, and the land became vaster. Emperor Sword Court's disciples felt their blood boiling. Too powerful. I heard that grand teacher has become a saint. Can you feel it? The spiritual chi is growing. The spiritual chi here has already surpassed Wanshan Great Thousand. Luckily, we didn't go out. The disciples discussed among themselves. The world in the lotus was vast. Zhou Xuanji allowed them to choose their own residence, but they were not allowed to fight with their peers for territory. If there were any disputes, they had to consult Emperor Sword Court, and the elders and deacons would decide. Xiao Jinghong and Zhao Songjian followed behind Zhou Xuanji. Looking at him using his saint energy, their eyes were filled with admiration. I have 5 heavenly law of violet chi with me. You are benevolent and qualified to become a saint, but you are too weak. Later, I will temper your muscles and bones to increase your physical talent, Zhou Xuanji said casually. Zhou Xuanji said indifferently. Right now, if he wanted to become more powerful, it would take countless years just by relying on cultivation. So, he turned his attention to his disciples. He wanted to help Emperor Sword Court become more powerful so that he could lead them to a vaster universe. Xiao Jinghong shook his head and said, I don't want the heavenly law of violet chi. I want to become an overlord saint like you. Zhao Songjian nodded. When they heard about Zhou Xuanji's process of killing a saint, their blood boiled with excitement. An overlord saint was really domineering. He could kill a heavenly saint with a single slash right after becoming a saint. How could they not yearn for such power? Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile and said, Tell Bei Xiao and Lianxin to work hard on cultivating as well. Strive to become a saint in the future. He had a lot of affection for his disciples and sword slaves who had followed him since the beginning. Back then, when they ran away together, even though they were in a sorry state, it was very heartwarming. Chapter 620. Finally, Zhou Xuanji expanded the Lotus world by dozens of times. He planted all the natural resources he obtained in every corner to produce spiritual chi for the Lotus world. To prevent his disciples from digging up these natural resources, he set up a defensive barrier. Once it was triggered, the plunderers would be repelled but not killed. After all this, Zhou Xuanji came to the heavenly hall and teleported Emperor Yin of Zhou out. In the forest, Emperor Yin of Zhou was shocked when he saw Zhou Xuanji. He thought that this brat was here to kill him. Zhou Xuanji was expressionless as he let out Lady Zhao Xian and Zhou Xiaoxian. Then, he left the place. He did this for Lady Zhao Xian's wish. But he did not want to see Emperor Yin of Zhou, so he asked Zhou Xiaoxian to look after her. Zhou Xiaoxian was powerful enough to protect Lady Zhao Xian. You? How could you? Emperor Yin of Zhou opened his eyes wide and trembled. He could not believe his eyes. How could a dead person come back to life? It was possible if she had just died. But how many years had it been since Lady Zhao Xian died? Humph! It's him? Zhou Xiaoxian crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at her grandfather with disdain. She knew about Zhou Xuanji's past a long time ago. She was pampered since she was young. She could not imagine how it felt to be hunted down by her own father. Just thinking about it made her feel suffocated. Emperor Yin of Zhou looked at Zhou Xiaoxian and fell into a daze. Because Zhou Xiaoxian was too similar to Lady Xiaoxian, just like sisters. But he heard a rumor that Zhou Xuanji had a daughter. Could it be? Emperor Yin of Zhou suddenly felt ashamed, and he wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. Lady Xiaoxian walked up to him with a complicated expression and pursed her lips. Emperor Yin of Zhou hesitated for a while before mustering up his courage and said, "Xian, smack." Lady Xiaoxian slapped him. He did not dodge or retreat, but took the slap head on. This was what he deserved. He accepted it. At this moment, a powerful gust came. Zhou Xiaoxian charged over and slapped him. This slap caused him to vomit blood. He was sent flying, crashing into a large tree and breaking it. Zhou Xiaoxian smiled proudly. "Grandma, you are not strong enough. I can help you to make him suffer." Lady Xiaoxian was stunned and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Zhou Xuanji came to the old immortal's Taoist temple. The Taoist temple had already disappeared, and there were still traces of wooden stakes on the ground. The spiritual flowers planted not far away had already been surrounded by weeds. He sighed, feeling as if things had remained the same, but the people had changed. Now, in his heart, the old immortal was already his master, more important than the old beggar. When he was on the verge of despair, it was the old immortal who pointed out the right path for him and brought him hope. It was also the old immortal who helped him comprehend the Tao intent. In the end, the old immortal had died for him. Even though there was still hope of resurrection, every time he thought of it, he would feel a little depressed. "Senior, wait for me in the Kunlun Origin Court," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. He walked to the tree he used to stay under and sat down against the trunk, feeling the breeze and all the details around him. That was how he had comprehended the Tao back then. Now that he had become an overlord saint, he had a different feeling when he calmed his mind. The world was very small. The universe was huge. Saint was very strong, but he was not strong enough to take in the entire universe. The rustling of grass in the wind was in front of his eyes and beside his ears. He raised his head and gazed into the distant sky, lost in thought. He did not focus on one thing, but emptied his mind. After a long while, a silhouette appeared beside him. It was Ren Niming. "Congratulations. You have become an overlord saint and surpassed all the saints in history," Ren Niming said with a smile. His eyes were even more passionate than before. Now, he really felt hope from Zhou Xuanji. The hope to defeat destiny. Zhou Xuanji looked at him intently and asked, "When do I have the right to challenge destiny?" Destiny was like a blade hanging above his head. He could not ignore it. Although he was powerful, he was afraid that the people around him would be harmed by destiny. There's still a period of time. Destiny is something that can even toy with the heavenly saints. If you want to defeat him, you must at least be more powerful than all the heavenly saints, and not just by a little, Ren Niming said seriously. He was worried that Zhou Xuanji would become arrogant. Zhou Xuanji looked at him and asked, "After defeating destiny, do you want to become destiny?" A conscious rule was extremely horrifying, especially someone like Ren Niming, who had abundant emotions and was good at scheming. Ren Niming shook his head and said with a smile, "Since I'm no longer destiny, I will not go back. If you destroy destiny, a new destiny will be born. The karma will accelerate, but it will no longer have a consciousness. And I want to live for myself. Destiny is a rule that serves all living beings after all." His words were as flawless as ever. But Zhou Xuanji did not believe him completely. If he became destiny, why couldn't he live for himself? "Next, I only need to become more powerful. Powerful enough to challenge destiny, right?" He asked casually. After breaking through to the Overlord Saint, he planned to nurture his own Tao will. As for cultivation, he would leave it to the 4 demon god clones. He was so powerful not because of the Overlord Saint, but because of his Tao will. The power of the rule that surpassed the heavenly law. Ren Niming nodded and said, you could develop freely. You have 5 heavenly law violet chi anyway, which is enough to create a new heavenly saint era and prevent the heavenly law from collapsing. He did not make any comments on the heavenly law of violet chi, but only mentioned it briefly. After that, he left quickly. Zhou Xuanji continued to stabilize his mental state. A few hours later, he went to pick up Lady Zhao Xian and Zhou Shaoxian. In the forest, he did not see Emperor Yin of Zhou. Lady Zhao Xian decided to cut off all ties with Emperor Yin of Zhou. Emperor Yin of Zhou was a little unwilling to do so. He swore that one day he would appear before Lady Zhao Xian with dignity. Just like back then in the northern wilderness region, his name shook the world. As the emperor of the empire, he married Lady Zhao Xian despite the empress' objection. Lady Zhao Xian only had Daoya Old Man as her backer. Back then, he was extremely glorious. But now, he could not even raise his head in front of Lady Zhao Xian. Then, let him prove himself slowly. Zhou Xuanji smiled lightly and stored Lady Zhao Xian and Zhou Shaoxian into the Lotus World before returning. Emperor Yin of Zhou's ambition was ignited, but he did not have much time left. Zhou Xuanji might leave the heavenly law universe with Lady Zhao Xian someday. At that time, it would be an eternal separation for Emperor Yin of Zhou. Returning to the Taoist temple, he continued to lean against the tree trunk to sense the heavens and earth and the universe's rules. He took out his legendary swords one after another. Many of his legendary swords had different powers. To him, after these powers were amplified, they would become different rules. For example, the Thunderclap Sword, Great Thousand Reincarnation Sword, and so on. What's the relationship between the Great Tao and the Heavenly Law? Zhou Xuanji suddenly thought of a question and fell into deep thought. I have countless legendary swords. I have countless legendary swords. Chapter 6:21. When Zhou Xuanji began to comprehend the Tao will, the great thousand worlds gradually regained their stability. Although there were still fights, they were much more peaceful than before when the heavenly saints were leading them. As such, many creatures said that it was the Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji who set the world. Barbarian god Huang Luo and Buddha Yangling didn't dare to cause any trouble. Sheng Tiandao and Phoenix Lord Tianqi didn't make any moves either. The greater thousand worlds continued to develop. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 years passed. Zhou Xuanji had reached 500 years old, but he still sat in front of the forest and did not leave. Analyze that the sword owner has reached 500 years old. Gotcha started. Ding. Congratulations. The sword owner has obtained Glorious Gold, Hidden Saber Sword, Primeval, Chaos Grand Beginning Sword. Because Sword Master has obtained the first Primeval Divine Sword, the Divine Sword grades will be updated. When Sword Master leaves the Heavenly Law universe, the new Divine Sword grades will be announced. Hearing the Sword Spirit's voice, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes. The Primordial Divine Sword had finally appeared. There was actually an even higher grade of Divine Sword. He couldn't help but look forward to it. However, there was still a long time before he left the Heavenly Law universe. Then, the information of the Divine Sword appeared before his eyes. Sword name: Primal Chaos Sword Level. Primeval description: a godly sword born at the beginning of chaos. It possesses the power of creation, creating something out of nothing and turning something rotten into something magical. One needs to be at least a 7th level Overlord Saint to use this sword. The power of creation. Overlord Saint level 7. Zhou Xuanji was amazed. How powerful was this sword? As for sword delivery, he was too lazy to check its information. In more than 100 years, he had obtained more than 300 godly swords, but the highest one was of the connecting heaven level. Fortunately, the sword spirit gave him a pleasant surprise when he was 500 years old. Now, the number of his divine swords had already exceeded 1,000. He had taken a big step towards having 10,000 swords. His cultivation base did not improve much as it was still at Overlord Saint level 1. His will of the way had improved quite a bit. He had a deeper understanding of the Great Tao. The great Tao was more advanced than the heavenly Tao, and it was more inclusive than the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was above all living beings. The great Tao was higher than the heavenly Tao, but it existed among all living beings. With the Tao in one's heart, the Tao would be there. This kind of belief was easy to say, but it was not easy to truly acknowledge the Tao by his side from the bottom of his heart. It was easy to deceive others, but difficult to deceive oneself, not to mention belief. As his understanding of Tao insight deepened, he felt even more reverence towards the grand Tao, because he could feel the power of the great Tao all around him. It was invisible and indestructible, just like the fish in the ocean marveling at the magic of the water. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and stood up slowly. He stretched his back and body. The sun is so beautiful, he muttered to himself and smiled. After comprehending the great Tao for so long, it was time for him to go out and take a stroll. While he was comprehending, the disciples of Emperor Sword Court were also diligently cultivating. Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Songjian, and the other trusted aides started to roam the world by themselves, and all of them made a name for themselves. He pondered for a moment. Zhou Xuanji decided to go to the Divine Cliff first. After the Divine Cliff returned to Wanshan Great Thousand, they returned to their original place and rebuilt their sect. Because of Zhou Xuanji's reputation, the Divine Cliff recruited disciples and developed quickly. No faction dared to offend them. Zhou Xuanji passed through the dense fog and came to the Divine Cliff City. Looking at the bustling city, he could not help but recall what he had seen and heard when he first ascended. That was how powerful the Divine Cliff was back then. Unfortunately, Cliff Master Han Shuzi, who had given his all to nurture him, was no longer around. Zhou Xuanji strolled forward in the sea of people. Along the way, he heard many disciples talking about him. This is the Divine Cliff that the Sword Emperor first ascended to. It's so majestic. Tisk, what's this? The Divine Cliff is only a second-rate faction in the Senegal province. With the Sword Emperor, the Divine Cliff is a first-rate faction. Tsk. I want to join Emperor Sword Court, but I heard that Emperor Sword Court is with the Sword Emperor, and it's hard to find. Zhou Xuanji smiled. He was in a good mood, but he did not feel very excited. He was no longer the child he used to be. As his Tao will grew, his mental state was also changing. Nothing in the mortal world entered his eyes. As he moved forward, no one could see his figure or sense his aura. An hour later, he came to the Cliff Master's palace. Cliff Master Yang Yuqian, Elder Wu Qiu, and Lan Xiangying were discussing how to settle the new disciples. Hundreds of years had passed, but their appearances did not change. Time did not leave any traces on them. Zhou Xuanji suddenly appeared and said with a smile, "The Divine Cliff has been developing well recently. Looks like it will recover to its peak soon, or even surpass it." With this, Yang Yuqian and the others turned around. When they saw Zhou Xuanji, they became excited immediately. Yang Yuqian and Wu Qiu took a step forward and wanted to hug Zhou Xuanji. But after taking a step, their feet seemed to be rooted to the ground and could not move. Zhou Xuanji no longer belonged to the Divine Cliff. He was the most powerful person in the heavenly law, the overlord Saint Sword Emperor, who reigned above the heavenly saints. Even though he did not unleash his saint's might, he still gave them immense pressure. "Why are you back?" Yang Yuqian held back his excitement and asked in surprise. Lan Xiangying also looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression. Back then, after Zhou Xuanji ascended, she brought him on a mission. That was his first mission, which was to snatch Shi Shinzong from the hegemon Sword Emperor. Zhou Xuanji shrugged and said, "I came back to take a look. I've been meditating in one place for more than 100 years. It's time to take a breather." Meditating? The three looked at each other in dismay and could not help but admire Zhou Xuanji. If they were in Zhou Xuanji's shoes, how could they calm down and cultivate after becoming the most powerful cultivator at such a young age? Moreover, they had to meditate and calm their minds. Zhou Xuanji began asking about the Divine Cliff's recent situation. Yang Yuqian and Wu Qiu were very enthusiastic, while Lan Xiangying listened quietly. She felt a little excited too. With someone from the same sect like Zhou Xuanji, how could the divine cliff not flourish? The four chatted for a while, and Zhou Xuanji began to guide them in their cultivation. No matter what question they asked, Zhou Xuanji could answer them quickly and hit the nail on the head, which enlightened them. After a series of exchanges, Zhou Xuanji's image in their hearts grew even higher. The atmosphere was harmonious. Zhou Xuanji did not put on airs either. He was in a good mood to meet his old friends. Among the stars, a stone coffin floated quietly. A silhouette flew over. It was the demonic ancestor from before. Only his soul was left, wandering in the universe. Ever since he heard that Zhou Xuanji had become an overlord saint, he did not dare to stay in the heavenly law universe anymore. He mustered up his courage and came to this place in the void. What's that? The demonic ancestor frowned. Why was there a coffin here? He instinctively wanted to avoid it, but he felt that it was a serendipity. A powerful cultivator who could come here must be very powerful. To be able to prepare a coffin for himself before he died, it was even more extraordinary. He approached the stone coffin carefully and prepared to open it. Chapter 622. After leaving the Divine Cliff, Zhou Xuanji returned to the northern wilderness region. He wanted to walk the same path as before. Reminiscing about the past could also give one an epiphany in their state of mind. Ever since his rise, the northern wilderness region had become even more exciting. Countless geniuses had emerged, each of them outstanding. His legend continued to spread in the northern wilderness region, becoming more and more legendary. The once destitute Great Zhou Empire had now become one of the most powerful empires in the northern wilderness region. The number of commoners and cultivators under its banner was the highest among all the empires. As he strolled around the world, he could often see his own stone statues. There were even temples where he enjoyed the incense offerings of the mortal world. He discovered that the incense was closely related to his luck. Every time he got close to the joss sticks that were worshipping him, his luck would increase a little. This must be the rules of the heavenly Tao. Gaining people's faith is the greatest reward of benevolence. Zhou Xuanji stood in a simple temple and mumbled to himself. This stone statue looked very ugly, and one of its ears was missing. But for some reason, he felt that this stone statue was very spiritual. Perhaps it was because this stone statue had received a lot of incense offerings and had already manifested its spirit. At that moment, a stone monkey emerged from behind him. It was the primordial ancestor statue. Zhou Xuanji looked back at it and asked with narrowed eyes, "Why are you here?" The primordial ancestor statue had screwed him over, so he had a bad impression of it. The demon ancestor's soul escaped from the heavenly law universe and encountered that enemy of mine. I reckon that it won't be long before that fellow uses the demon ancestor's soul to infiltrate the heavenly law universe. You're already very strong now. Are you prepared for battle? The primordial ancestor statue went straight to the point, sounding a little anxious. The soul of the demon ancestor? Zhou Xuanji almost forgot about this guy. He asked, "Then can you tell me the other party's name and ability?" As for that mysterious enemy, he also wanted to get rid of it. Otherwise, it would be like a knife hanging over his head, making him feel uneasy. I was severely injured and lost most of my memories. I only remember that his name has the word in it. As for his specific abilities, I can't remember. Although he is strong, he is not as strong as the heavenly Tao. Otherwise, he would have charged in long ago. The primordial ancestor statue replied. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Why did it feel like this fellow was teasing it? Why don't you forget about yourself? He snorted coldly and said, "Since you've fallen to such a state, why not let him capture you?" The primordial ancestor statue fell silent. Zhou Xuanji was very curious about his background. The old immortal, the old beggar, the primordial ancestor statue, and that mysterious flame all came from the Kunlun origin court. So why didn't they know each other? Was the difference in status too great? It had been so many years. Hadn't they met once? Zhou Xuanji was deeply doubtful. After a while, Since he wants to come in, you can use the power of your eyes. I will teach you a divine ability. The primordial ancestor statue raised its right hand and shot a beam of light from its index finger toward Zhou Xuanji's forehead. Zhou Xuanji quickly grabbed the beam of light with his right hand and examined it before slapping it into his forehead. The primordial ancestor statue was shocked. This kid is so strong. How long has it been since they last met? This rate of growth was simply too outrageous. If he was in the Kunlun origin court, countless almighties would want to rope him in. Zhou Xuanji was not worried about it launching a sneak attack, and he quickly organized the memories of this divine ability. Exterminating divine light. If it hit the enemy, it could immobilize the enemy. If it hit a magic treasure, it could directly snatch it. This divine ability was ingenious. It had two different effects on living beings and magic treasures. After learning this divine ability, Zhou Xuanji could sense the immense power in his eyes. He could already control this power. What's your next plan? Continue hiding? Zhou Xuanji stared at the primordial ancestor statue and asked. This guy was quite sincere. Through the exterminating divine light, he knew that this pair of eyes was indeed powerful. The primordial ancestor statue sighed. I want to be like your senior and ask you to bring me back to the Kunlun origin court. But I can't. If I go back, I will be doomed eternally, and I might even implicate you. As long as you help me destroy Yin, I will stay in the heavenly law universe until my body is reconstructed. Stay in the heavenly law universe? Zhou Xuanji looked at it intently. He did not expose it, but asked if the primordial ancestor statue had any other instructions. The primordial ancestor statue replied, No, take care of yourself. Don't die in his hands. After that, it dived into the ground and disappeared. Zhou Xuanji smiled and left. He traveled through space and came to the demon realm. Soon he found Xian Xianghua. She was brainwashing a group of demon geniuses in a valley. Although I am a woman, I was able to rise from the mortal world and counterattack to become the lord of the demon world. I not only relied on my talent that surpassed all living beings, but also the pride in my bones. No matter how strong the enemy is, I still feel that they can't withstand a single blow. Xian Xianghua stood on the top of the mountain and laughed arrogantly. The geniuses in the valley all looked fanatical. Of course, no one knew what they were thinking in their hearts, but they had to act that way on the surface. Zhou Xuanji stood on the sea of clouds and heard Xian Xianghua's words. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This old demonic woman liked this kind of thing. He immediately walked up to Xian Xianghua. Xian Xianghua sensed his aura and looked back in surprise. The geniuses in the valley thought that a powerful enemy was coming. They all took out their enchanted artifacts and prepared for battle. Why are you here? Xian Xianghua asked with a smile. She flew up to Zhou Xuanji excitedly. The geniuses in the valley opened their eyes wide at this scene. It was the first time they saw Xian Xianghua behaving like a little girl. As the heavenly law demon monarch, after Xian Xianghua grasped the heart of the demonic realm, her cultivation rose along with it. Now, she was already in the ascending heaven state. In the demonic realm, she was invincible. Even ascending heaven level 10 existences could not do anything to her. Such a powerful female cultivator fell in love with someone. I'm here to see you. Let's talk somewhere else. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. His eyes were gentle, which made Xian Xianghua a little shy. It was the first time she was shy in front of Zhou Xuanji. She turned around and introduced him to her disciples. This is the Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji, the current Overlord Saint. You guys go ahead and cultivate. I have to receive him. After that, she held Zhou Xuanji's arm and flew toward the horizon. Boom! An uproar broke out in the valley. Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji. It's really him? Oh my God, the Sword Emperor is here. Why didn't I come back to my senses just now? He's undoubtedly the most powerful cultivator under the heavenly law. He looks so young. Of course. He's only 500 years old. He's about the same age as your grandson. Aren't you afraid of divine retribution? The geniuses of the demon realm were extremely excited. Even in the demon realm, Zhou Xuanji's name was like thunder to their ears. The word most powerful was enough to make Zhou Xuanji reach a pinnacle height that no one could match. On the other side, in the demon palace, Zhou Xuanji asked Xian Xianghua to sit down before he taught her the exterminating divine light. One must have the eyes bestowed by the primordial ancestor statue to use this divine ability. Jiang Shui and Zhou Shaoxian could not learn it even if they wanted to. She played with the 24-rank deep black lotus and sighed. Only he would treat such a treasure like a world. The 24-stage deep black lotus also had its own power, and it didn't just contain an independent world. She placed the 24-rank deep black lotus on her lap and began to comprehend the heavenly law of violet qi, the world within the lotus. Zhou Xuanji called Jiang Shui, Zhou Shaoxian, and Lady Zhaoxian together. Wow, you're finally going to marry Aunt Xian? Zhou Shaoxian said excitedly as if she was going to get married. Jiang Shui pinched her arm, causing her to grimace in pain. Lady Zhaoxian covered her mouth and smiled, but didn't say anything. Jiang Shui looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, "You should indeed give her a status. After all, she has been devoted to you for so many years and has done so many things for you." Zhou Xuanji held her hand and smiled. "When the time comes, you have to be with me. You are my wife forever." Jiang Shui smiled and said, "Oh, do you mean that you will have more concubines in the future?" Her smile was filled with a dangerous aura. Zhou Xuanji laughed and did not reply. Jiang Shui hugged his arm and smiled softly. "Let's go inside and talk." "Ha ha!" Zhou Shaoxian burst into laughter, and so did Lady Zhaoxian. He didn't dare to blame Lady Zhaoxian, but he had no qualms about Zhou Shaoxian. Practice the white crane sword technique 1,000,000 times. If you miss one, I will lock you up for a year. Zhou Xuanji snorted. Zhou Shaoxian heard him, and her face fell immediately. "What?" She cried out in grief and indignation. Zhou Xuanji turned to leave as he said, "Because I'm your father. I'm the Overlord Saint. If you dare to lie to me, I will know even if you miss one time." Zhou Shaoxian was completely depressed. She held Lady Zhaoxian's hand and said coquettishly, "Grandma, please control him. He's taking out on his daughter after being bullied in front of his wife." Lady Zhaoxian smiled benevolently and stroked her hair. "Don't worry, I will watch from the side," she comforted. Zhou Shaoxian was speechless. Zhou Xuanji brought Jiang Shui to the demon palace to discuss the marriage with Xian Xianghua. The two women chatted while he wandered around the demon palace. He secretly cast a spell to modify the demon palace. He placed qi internalizing restrictions on every wall and strengthened the walls. All of this was a piece of cake for an overlord saint like him. At the saint realm, he could create something from nothing and turn something rotten into something magical. He could use his saint energy to create anything within the 5 elements. And he could even enlighten living beings. Even if it was a rock, he could easily enlighten it and turn it into a spirit. Finally, Xian Xianghua decided to get married in 10 years. For their current cultivation, 10 years was nothing. As the lord of the demon realm, Xian Xianghua had many things to deal with. She needed 10 years to prepare for the marriage. Zhou Xuanji had no objections. After that, he sent Jiang Shui back into the world in the lotus. He left the demon realm and headed toward the void. He decided to guard the void near Wanshan Great Thousand and wait for Yan's arrival. In a luxurious palace, 10 men in golden armor knelt on the ground with their heads lowered. Before them, a white-haired man sat on a cushion. It was Sheng Tiandao. He wore a loose gray robe and had his eyes closed. He looked like a young man, and there were 3 golden flames on his forehead. They were the size of a thumb. Even though he sat there motionlessly, he gave off an aura that was as majestic as the heavenly law. "Saint Ancestor, you really don't mind?" A man in golden armor asked with gritted teeth. His eyes were filled with reluctance. Since ancient times, Sheng Tiandao had always been the most powerful heavenly saint. Why did everyone turn against Zhou Xuanji when he rose up? They were not convinced. Sheng Tiandao replied without opening his eyes. It's a good thing for the heavenly law universe that he became the overlord saint. Moreover, he's not an evil person. On the contrary, he's more benevolent than the other heavenly saints. He had been observing Zhou Xuanji since a long time ago, or else he would not have invited Emperor Sword Court to the All Heavens Dao feast. But no buts. Facing Sheng Tiandao's domineering attitude, the 10 people in the palace did not dare to speak anymore. A while later, Sheng Tiandao spoke slowly. Don't forget what I told you before. Soon, I will carry it out. At that time, if you are not powerful enough, don't blame me for abandoning you. The 10 men in golden armor heard him and trembled in fear. They quickly promised that they would work hard to cultivate. I have countless legendary swords. Chapter 6:24. In the void, Zhou Xuanji sat on a meteorite and silently comprehended the great Tao around him. His 4 demon god avatars were scattered throughout the starry sky. If the demon ancestor's soul were to approach, he would definitely be able to sense it immediately. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of him. It was Sheng Tiandao. Zhou Xuanji said without opening his eyes, "Are you Sheng Tiandao, or Phoenix Lord Tianqi?" There were only 4 heavenly saints left in the heavenly way. He had already seen 2 of them and was familiar with their auras. Victory over the heavenly Tao. Zhou Xuanji heard him and opened his eyes slowly. He was quite curious about this strongest heaven saint. "What business do you have with me, sir?" Zhou Xuanji asked directly. He could sense no hostility from Sheng Tiandao. The corners of Sheng Tiandao's mouth curled up. He smiled and said, "First, congratulations on becoming an overlord saint. The primordial ancestor should have already told you about Yin. Do you know that there is another existence above the heavenly law? He protects the heavenly law universe, preventing the Kunlun origin court from harming it." Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes. He did not expect Sheng Tiandao to know so much. Could it be that the primordial ancestor had a favor to ask of him? Above the heavenly Tao is the great Tao. That existence is an eternal and indestructible existence that controls the great Tao. No one knows where he came from, but there is one thing that Yin and the primordial ancestor fear. As long as the heavenly Tao doesn't collapse, he won't make a move. Yin used the soul of the devil ancestor to sneak in. Next, he will most likely look for you, because you have the eye of the primordial ancestor. Sheng Tiandao continued with a mysterious smile. Zhou Xuanji straightforwardly asked, "What do you want?" Sheng Tiandao smiled and said, "I will search for the Kunlun origin court with you." He paused for a moment before continuing. "The primordial ancestor's memories have been fading. According to my previous understanding, the Kunlun origin court is different from the world order we imagined. I have been stuck at the Saint Realm for hundreds of millions of years, and I don't want to wait any longer." Several 100 million years. Zhou Xuanji's heart shook. Only then did he realize that he had underestimated the heavenly saint's age. It was indeed impressive that he had reached Overlord Saint Level 1 at the age of 500. Sure, he could sense Sheng Tiandao's sincerity. At the same time, he felt that Sheng Tiandao had some understanding of the Kunlun origin court and might be able to help him. He then said, "Before that, I want to defeat fate." Before he became stronger than Yin, he could not leave the heavenly law universe. During this period of time, he had to be careful of fate. At the same time, he also promised Ren Niming that he would keep his promise. Fate, don't blindly trust others. Sheng Tiandao said intently, which made Zhou Xuanji squint his eyes. After this, Sheng Tiandao sat beside Zhou Xuanji. Before Zhou Xuanji could ask, he smiled and said, "Why don't we discuss the Tao and each take what we need?" "All right." Zhou Xuanji agreed immediately. He had yet to discuss Tao with a heavenly saint. Furthermore, the person in front of him was definitely the only existence in the heavenly law universe that could rival him. The two sages began their discussion. Sheng Tiandao was the first to talk about his Tao. His Tao was just like his name. It was all about winning. Victory over the heavens, victory over oneself, victory over the heavens. Zhou Xuanji could sense his immense confidence from his words. Soon, Zhou Xuanji was immersed in Sheng Tiandao's Tao technique. Inside a dark palace, the demonic emperor sat on the stage, like a flickering candle in the dark night. After being severely injured by Zhou Xuanji, he could not reform his body even after hundreds of years. After losing demon god Naming, he did not even dare to return to the great Thousand World. After knowing that Zhou Xuanji had become an overlord saint, he fled the heavenly law universe with this palace. At this moment, this palace was located in the silent and boundless universe. There were no stars in all directions, only endless darkness. The demonic emperor opened his eyes suddenly and mumbled with a frown, "Why do I have an uneasy feeling? Could it be that Zhou Xuanji has found me? It shouldn't be. Could it be that this brat was still holding a grudge against him? He was already an overlord saint. How could he be so narrow-minded?" He felt depressed. 500 years ago, he could never have imagined that he would be forced into such a state by Junior. Boom! The palace suddenly shook violently, which shocked him so much that he stood up immediately with his eyes wide open. Damn it! He cursed furiously and thought about what to do. He thought that Zhou Xuanji had already locked onto him. If he ran out, he would surely die. At this moment, the palace gate opened suddenly. A ball of green flame levitated at the gate, which made the demonic emperor extremely anxious. "It's not Zhou Xuanji, what's that?" The demonic emperor was even more afraid. It was his first time coming to the universe outside the heavenly law universe. He was still fearful of unknown food. The green flame hissed like a venomous snake, which made the demonic emperor shiver in fear. Seeing that the situation was not right, the demonic emperor immediately flew out of the palace. Just when he flew out of the palace, he bumped into a ball of green flame, which scared him out of his wits. "What's that?" The demonic emperor cried out in fear. He stepped back instinctively, but it was too late. The green flame engulfed his soul in an instant. "Ha ha ha! I, the old ancestor, am finally back." An old and frenzied laughter came. This was the last voice the demonic emperor heard. Zhou Xuanji and Sheng Tiandao discussed the Tao for 3 years in the starry sky. Both of them gained something, and Zhou Xuanji completely acknowledged Sheng Tiandao. Of course, it was not because he saw Sheng Tiandao as a friend, but because he acknowledged his character and power. This day, they stopped discussing the Tao. It was not that they did not want to talk, but they sensed the aura of the demonic ancestor's soul. "Let me deal with this guy," Sheng Tiandao said with a smile. After that, he disappeared on the spot. He wanted to follow Zhou Xuanji to search for the Kunlun origin court, so he had to do something in advance. Zhou Xuanji did not stop him and waited on the spot. Just when Sheng Tiandao left, Ren Niming flew over from the Wanshin Great Thousand. "You intend to work with him?" Ren Niming asked with a frown. Anger could be seen in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji glanced at him and said, "I will help you get rid of Destiny and bring him out of the heavenly law universe." There is no conflict between the two. As for Ren Niming, he had always been dubious about him. He had been deceived many times in his life. Ren Niming took a deep breath and said, "Do you know why Sheng Tiandao is so powerful?" Zhou Xuanji asked with squinted eyes. "You want to say that he obtained the power of destiny?" Ren Niming shook his head and said meaningfully, "He's very mysterious. Even I don't know his background. You must be careful. According to my understanding, he has no relationship with the primordial ancestor." After that, Ren Niming left quickly. Not long after he left, Sheng Tiandao returned. "I captured him." Sheng Tiandao flew up to Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile. He opened his right hand, and a ball of light appeared in his hand. It was the demonic ancestor's soul. It was only the size of half a palm and maintained its human form. He looked indifferent and did not panic at all. He stared into Zhou Xuanji's eyes. "You are Yin?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He did not sense any danger. It seemed that the demonic ancestor's soul only had a trace of Yan's will, and he came here just to gather information. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.